Welcome, everyone, to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host, and today we are wrapping up the finale of Andor Season 2. And with me to talk about the last 3 episodes is my good friend and yours, Missy.
Hello, all.
We want to start out by saying these 3 episodes were incredibly produced, beautiful, well written from a script perspective, but this is a disclaimer because, and maybe it should be warning for people with high cholesterol because there's going to be a lot of salt.
Yes. Yeah. We're going to have some very strong critiques of this arc and of the show as a whole, looking back on it, or I should say the season as a whole, looking back on it with the benefit of having seen the whole thing. And it's important to understand that that is not personal. And so if you loved it, if you found it resonant, if you related to the characters, if you just found it personally very touching, very entertaining, and it's your favorite Star Wars or whatever, that is valid and that's great. And that's the beauty of Star Wars and of storytelling in general, is that different stories do that for different people. And so just understand that nothing that we say should take away from your love of this show. We're going to call things out.
Yeah. And there are some things that undermine it personally for us because, unfortunately, it is reflecting some larger cultural problems that were ignored in the desire to tell an incredibly anti-fascist story, that undermine the point.
Right.
And we're going to get deep into that. This is a hard conversation because, generally speaking, for me, I do believe that this has been some of the best constructed Star Wars we have ever gotten. Beautiful sets, beautiful lines that actors get to deliver. Personally, those that listen to this to me on a regular basis will know that there's some things in Andor that I feel are missing from Star Wars stories that I like to consume. But I was all in on season 1. Yeah. Season 2 has had some problems that I have not been able to ignore, both with characters and also with construction. And those problems absolutely stem from the decision of how to produce the show and the story that they wanted to tell, the money that was given to produce it, probably the Disney decisions that were made to produce it, and then fundamentally the writers who chose to write it in a particular way that left character-related holes in the story.
Yep.
And it means that those problems take away from the story for me personally.
Yeah. So we just wanted to lay that out there so that everyone knows what they're getting going.
Still stuff we're going to talk about.
Fun stuff to talk about.
And it's going to be layered in, but we are going to point out a lot of the problem areas as we go, but we won't get into what that means necessarily until the very end. So if you're like, I just want the good stuff, guess what? You can skip past that end and just enjoy the joy along the way. I mean, we're not going to get into too many rants. Yeah, mostly.
We'll save the big rants for the end.
Yeah. So these episodes, Make It Stop, Who Else Knows, Jedha Kyber Urso, are the last 3 episodes of Andor Season 2. To talk a little bit about motifs and themes, I definitely wanted to solidify that Yavin now for me, although I saw it before, is a lap of the goddess. So it is the Yavin rebel base has become a place of healing, rest, but it is also not a place by which you can grow, because the lap of the goddess is technically an underworld. It is a place of protection. It is a place of healing, but it is not a place where you can actually go and have your adventure.
Right.
You get stuck there. You don't want to leave. You're hesitant to leave because it's scary out there. And so to me, that makes it even more poignant in A New Hope when Yavin is actually threatened to be destroyed. It is this, maybe not a great paradise, but it is certainly safe. It's actually used as a sanctuary type word in the text of these last 3 episodes of like, those who have done bad things don't feel like they deserve to go to Yavin. And so it's really important because it's the promised land.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Which goes back to, remember how I mentioned last week that the Baal's next year in Yavin statement was like, oh, that's a Passover Seder comment. Like, this almost kind of reinforces that they did actually go to the promised land.
That's the promised land.
Yeah, like
but it's also like it was a really scary place in the start of the season.
Right, it was. Yeah.
But I still don't understand why that was such a scary place and what they've had to do to make it a not scary place or anything. Like, there's a gap there. Yeah. The next theme motif that we wanted to talk about, of course, was consumption. This is, of course, reiterated multiple times textually in the script. I'll definitely call out
a lot of burning.
Lots of burning.
Yep.
Of course, the Empire has been using up people and then discards them, both the oppressed people throughout the galaxy and also Dedra. They just don't care about the cogs in the machine. Krennic eventually learns this in Rogue One.
Right.
So it's a big theme that continues into Rogue One as well.
Yep.
Over the course of Andor, the ISB security briefing room started out full.
Right.
And also like the security room where they did all the coordinated attacks on different things.
Right.
Yeah, that was full. And then by the end, it's emptier, and there's only like 3 or 4 people ever in that room at that time.
Right.
So that it's like showing that the Empire consumes.
Yes.
I also want to call out that the rebellion has been consuming its people effectively through purposefulness or not. Luthen, using the tools of his enemy, has burned up all of the people that have worked for him. Willimon has a busted leg that a year after he hurt it is still hurt. He walks with a limp. Val is not the same person, not the brave person that she was before, content to just do security briefings. Bix is nowhere to be seen.
Yep. Totally noped out.
Yeah, and Clea may never recover from the experiences of what she has become. And so I think it's important that this entire experience does not create renewal. War rarely does. And then the last one is, of course, talking about archetypes. I think it's important to talk about how Luthen represents a king archetype who has realized that his death is imminent and walks bravely into his own death. And so death for the king is symbolic and really important because it represents renewal and a chance for the next generation to step up and take on the mantle of the heavy responsibilities. Usually the antagonist is the cataclysm. The Death Star, Cataclysm, the book, that's to lead into Rogue One.
Oh, Catalyst. That's Catalyst.
Sorry, Catalyst.
But I know what you mean.
But like the idea is the Death Star is coming for them all, and it's the Cataclysm at the gate that is coming, and that by the sacrifice of the king, it has an opportunity to renew the spirits of the people that are around them, and also to give the opportunity to grow beyond what you have currently built. And fundamentally, it's about strength versus spirit, and the idea that you can live beyond your own life. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical death, but oftentimes it is in Star Wars. It's exemplified by Nemec's manifesto being repeated at the end of the arcs. And of course, Luthen saying that The rebellion is now everywhere. It's flown. It's now the entire galaxy is there to disappoint you. It's that everything has grown beyond what he originally built as his kingdom.
Yep.
And that's the big ones. All the rest of the archetypes that we had talked about previously, either reverted back for these last 3 episodes, so they regressed, or they were not. There's not enough to talk about.
Right. So, and this is where we go back to what your point about, like, so much of the action of these episodes happening on Yavin, and the fact that there's no growth there. So nobody has the opportunity to progress and to grow into the next, or transform into the next archetype there. And the only other activity really happens on Coruscant, which at this point in time is also an underworld.
Yep, because it only means death to stay there.
Right. And when they leave, because they're just going to Yavin, they're not actually having a rebirth. So what's weird about it is the way that there's not really any rebirth in this. The closest we get is it's almost there for Clea, a little, but there's distinctive motifs missing for that. So so we just don't really get transformation in this. And I would say that the argument for this is probably, that's because it's setting up for the transformation to happen in Rogue One. And yes and no. I mean, arguably the only character we could do that for in Rogue One would be Cassian, I guess. But otherwise, none of the other characters really feature. I mean, Mon a little bit, but otherwise not really. And so what ends up happening is that we kind of just wrap up with everybody in a static, flat arc, which is very weird.
which is very weird to not see transformation as part of the climax of a 2-season long show.
Right. Yeah. So
I mean,
choices.
Whatever. I believe my tweet or my post on Blue Sky after the episode was, well, that was a choice. And I kind of meant the whole thing.
Not just one part of it. Just in general, all of it was a choice. And actually, you know what? You want to talk about themes? We'll come back to the theme of it was a choice because, it's important to understand characters are the result of decisions by writers. They do not exist on their own. So there's no such thing as like respecting a character's choice because the character doesn't make any choice that someone doesn't write for them. So it's important to understand what is actually happening here. Anyway, but yeah.
Are you ready to dig into Make It Stop?
I'm ready because guess what? Make It Stop is my favorite episode from this season.
Same.
Yes, I love it. So good.
And it's because it's actually a full, complete story.
It's a single story. It stands on its own. Agreed.
It stands on its own.
It's so good.
It could be literally, this could be a one of a series of stories, much like Visions is one of a series of stories that stands on its own, and it would be just as powerful because it's written in such a way that you do not need any other information.
Yeah.
You didn't even need to watch Andor before this.
That's right.
It reminds me of the Last of Us episode with the two.
Oh yeah, Bill and Frank.
Bill and Frank. Yeah. It reminds me of that. Like it's kind of like its own little like bottle episode. Is that what they're called when they're on their own?
Oh, I don't know. Probably that's a good name for it.
So, but we start out with the message to the antique shop, and it's Lonnie.
Yep.
And he has found something. And so Clea and Luthen take time to dress Luthen as his persona that he uses in Coruscant to wander around. Although he has dressed not like that, only in the nighttime. But in the daytime, he wears his wigs and his fancy outfits.
Yeah.
And they focus on like putting on his rings and everything like that, which was really good.
And when he sort of like runs his hand over the wig and kind of looks at it almost critically. And you get the feeling of like the disguise is being worn thin.
Yes.
It's threadbare, and the mask is going to slip soon.
And textually, we hear it in the script. We've used up all the perfect.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
And then he says the word move, which I caught later on.
Right.
And so they're already laying these like little threads of their relationship, which I loved. And then so Lonnie and Luthen meet, and they start to talk, and he's like, I'm burned. So
I'm burned. Yep.
That consumption. And he's basically used up his ability to stay hidden within the ISB. I know. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Oh, I just want to say I just want to kind of say very clearly what happened here, because I didn't actually understand it until my second watch through.
Oh, okay.
But what I understood to happen was when Lonnie realized that Dedra had identified Axis and was coming for Luthen, he used the access to her files that he had, like he said, for a year. And he chose to use that access to go digging through her private files for something he could trade to Luthen for his safety and for his family's safety. So the whole thing was,
from a selfish perspective.
Yes and no, because here's what I want to point out, and this is really important to me later. Lonnie has a hero's arc.
Yep.
Lonnie is more of a hero than Cassian in some ways. Lonnie moved the action of the story. He didn't just kind of like wait around for the call to come. Lonnie took action. He took steps. He made decisions. He took risks. Lonnie was a very proactive hero.
Yep.
And I think we should call that out, because there are not a lot of characters moving the action in general. Things kind of happen.
Yeah.
But in Lonnie's case,
people react.
Right, exactly. Everybody's reactive, but Lonnie was proactive, and I think that's great.
Yeah, and it was all triggered from, Axis might be burned in this.
Right.
Maybe I'm burnt, or I could still protect him, and maybe he'll appreciate this. It's hard to kind of tell in that moment, but I know what we have been chasing. And so like Luthen, this is a hard scene, because it proves he is still a master manipulator, because he gets him on his side and says, we're in this together. Like, whatever happens to you happens to me. The Emperor's energy program is a lie. It's a weapon. And this is when he said Yavin. I was like, oh no, Lonnie.
Oh, Lonnie's dead. I know.
Lonnie's dead.
I was like, he would never have revealed Yavin by name to Lonnie unless he was going to kill him. So we knew.
Again, we've already established at the start of this episode, Yavin is like saying, we're heading to heaven.
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. So it's like, I'm going to take you there, Lonnie. No, you're not.
I'm going to take you to the promised land. Oh, no. Yep. Luthen protects that more than he protects really anything else.
Yeah,
he absolutely protects the other people in the rebellion. And Lonnie kills him. And then we have this.
No. He kills Lonnie. You said.
Yeah, sorry. Luthen kills Lonnie. Luthen kills Lonnie, and then we have this shot of him, and it's cool. It's at a weird angle.
Oh, the stair shot! I love
the stair shot, and he's descending. Right,
it's so good.
He's descending, and it's like, oh no, this is wild. And then we have this like little loth cat that's on a leash come up and be like meow, and the loth cat's name is Pix.
Oh yeah,
did you hear that?
I overheard. Yeah, the owner calls for it. Like, I love that.
Pix.
Anytime loth cats show up, I'm very happy. By the way, yeah, they're the best. They're so cute, even though it was like kind of macabre, because it was just so sad. It was such a sad scene, because like you knew it was coming, but it was still just really tragic. And and it sort of starts this trend you see throughout of like most of these people's names will be forgotten by history, right? And so, Lonnie did important things for the rebellion, and he will not be remembered for it.
Nope. Nobody's even going to remember his name, because they don't even believe that he was even maybe telling the truth.
Yeah, they don't really know. They don't know. So, so there's that. The other thing about the shot as Clea and Luthen then meet on the stairs is the angle it's at and the shape, the architectural shape of the stairs. They zigzag. They look like teeth.
Oh,
and
cool.
I noticed there are several places throughout the episode where the architecture looks like teeth.
That's cool. Consumption. Teeth.
It is, exactly.
Teeth that represent consumption. And of course, that means that they're in danger of being consumed.
Yep. Yeah.
Everything is closing in around
Yeah,
them.
the jaws are closing, like the jaws of the Empire are closing. Mm-hmm.
And so we hear Clea repeating what has been told to her. Gorman, Scarif, Kyber, Krennic, Urso, Galen Urso, super weapon, based in Scarif.
Yep.
Fuel from Gorman, Kyber from Jeddah, ISB, Krennic, Galen Urso.
Mm-hmm.
And then Luthen says, "Where do you know where to go?" And she's like, "Wait a second.
Yeah, hold up.
I'm the one that puts my life on the line for you, not the other way around," because she immediately sees through this.
Oh, she knows what he's up to. Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "I'll do the burn," which is, of course, that consumption motif again, but it's to burn everything that they have built in Coruscant. But he says, "No, I'm going to go and do it." And he goes to the shop and burns the comms and the records. And then Dead Ramiro knocks on the door.
Oh my gosh. She just, as always, is amazing. Her just, Denise Scout, incredible. Love this. And just the dialogue in this scene is so wonderful, because I've always loved when you have scenes like this where the characters they know what each other is about, but they can't say it out loud. So they're both kind of, everything they say has a double meaning.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that.
Yeah.
Please join us. And it's like she couldn't pass up the chance to gloat to his face and in a supervillain way monologue.
Yeah.
Krennic has a cape and she wants to monologue that I bested you. I figured you out. And he was prepared for this because of course he was.
And he knows her, and which he even tells her later. He's like, "I've known you the whole time." Right. So yeah, I love it. I love, here you are at last.
Yes.
Like we were always going to end up here, sort of thing.
I just love the line. So she says, "Is everything in here real?" And Luthen says, at the moment, only 2 pieces of questionable provenance.
Right.
He's talking about them. He's talking about them.
I love it. I love it. Oh, random real quick. I forget the name of it, but what's the Ryloth family heirloom that, remember, like
the Kokori?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But, if you watch the Rebels episode,
they have one in there.
Yeah, Hera's trying to rescue it from like Thrawn's personal collection or something. Anyway, it's there in the background, and also Amidala's invasion headpiece is there in the background. So multiple pieces there in the gallery during the scene, which I love. Anyway, back to them and the whole 2 pieces of questionable provenance. Like, it's referring to them. Who are they really, and what are they about?
And he pulls out a Notlin bleeder, which is a knife. It was kind of like a crystal sort of blade, and all these pieces. Do you own them all? So it's kind of like saying the pieces of the rebellion can all be traced back to you. Like,
but wait, he also said the tension mounts.
The tension mounts.
The tension mounts. Yes. He literally says that. It's in the dialogue. Oh my god! All right,
that's so funny.
Yeah, do you own them all yourself?
Yeah, do you? And so it's like, can all the rebellion be traced back to you?
Exactly. Are you the sole leader of the rebellion?
Yeah, and he's like, no, I have a few on consignment. I.e., they're owned by others. And then she pulls out the Starpath unit, and she's like, "Oh, I wonder if it'll be stunning." Like she's hoping to shock him that she's confronting him.
Yep.
Because she's so friggin' proud of herself.
She's so smug.
She's like, it's still in good working order or whatever. I have dreamt of this.
Yep.
This moment, and really, she goes into like, all you want is chaos, and she, over freedom. So there's really this big theme of chaos versus freedom, control versus order, sort of like these ideas that like, people want order because of perceived safety, but that ends up being like way more restrictive than what it is. Right. And people who only want order and control view freedom as chaos.
Yeah. And there's also then, to go to Luthen's line, you're too late. The rebellion isn't here anymore. It's flown away. And I want to briefly focus on flown away, because while this isn't really focused on in these episodes or really as a whole, flight in Star Wars is always freedom. Always, always, always. Flying away is freedom. That's why the Millennium Falcon is home for many of the characters in the Skywalker saga, is because it is inherently flight, a falcon, and therefore it represents freedom. It represents the freedom they're fighting for, and the freedom of living their lives. And so it's flown away is actually a fairly critical line here.
Yeah, exactly. And really back to what I said about how this is him sort of acknowledging that he is no longer useful against the impending disasters, and he's totally willing to just sacrifice himself.
Yeah, he knows he did his part. Like he understands that he made his contribution, and that at this point he has kind of outlived his usefulness and is more of a liability than anything else, and he knows that.
And so he turns around very strategically with the knife and stabs himself well enough to bleed out. Which causes her to lose her goddamn mind.
Yep. Yeah. Well, because it's like, it's her moment of triumph, and then she sees it all slipping away.
Yeah, and he was able to basically be like, haha, you're not going to get anything.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So, and at the moment that he is taken away, stabilized, and put into an ambulance, Clea sees him from another platform, and the perspective of the episode shifts to her. And the remainder of the episode is Clea is the POV character.
Yeah. Everything is from her perspective from that point on.
Exactly.
We do have sort of the ISB check-in about what has happened, because the realization of what Dedra has done, and also the death of Lonnie Young, is coming to like share the information. And so they start to be like, oh, there's something big happening.
Something's happening. Right.
We need to investigate this. So the ISB is all over the antique shop. And actually, I was really fascinated by like ISB CSI.
Yeah. The other thing it made me think of was like the way that the Nazis like stole a lot of famous artwork, and sort of stashed it away and everything. And it all had to be recovered later. This felt like that to me, of like, like the Empire is taking all of these precious artifacts. Like you see them with the Mortis God's relief and all that other stuff. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it's like, it's painful to think about maybe they're all going into Thrawn's collection. I don't know, but it's it's sad.
Well, didn't you know that Palpatine also has a wide and varied arts collection?
Oh, I'm sure he does.
Clea is in the safe house and recalls how Luthen and her met. So she's starting to experience these sort of flashbacks. It's a war zone where the population is being completely destroyed. Like you hear words like, if it moves, kill it, and like you hear a lot about like, oh, I got another 50 of those people. Like it's a genocide.
Yeah. Yeah, and very obviously, and the first glimpse we get of young Luthen is he's clearly very disturbed by it. He turns off his radio because he can't handle listening to the brutality, and the screams just continue constantly. And he drinks from a flask. He still hears the massacre happening, and he starts to murmur, "Make it stop, make it stop." And then he says what I assume is in whatever his sort of native language is, which is Roshneluts, which means make it stop.
Yeah. Yeah. And we know that somebody is peeking out from the darkness who is viewing on. We know it's Clea from the POV that we're in. He is a sergeant. And what I found fascinating is, like, in movies like Solo, they've shown regular soldiers are in these kind of like just brown, like regular outfits, like very expendable. They're not like in the armor of stormtroopers, which are like the elite.
Right.
Of the army that report as enforcers.
Yeah, these are grunts.
Right. These are grunts, right? And so he's like the lowest of the low from an imperial army perspective.
Yeah. And so then the other soldier comes in and says, any burners you got? And there you go. There's burn again, right? And that's the whole idea, is they're burning through the population. So he wants the whole street out there on fire. Everything's burning. And he hears the noise. Yeah. And comes and he sees her. He sees her.
And so symbolically, when we have something hidden like this that the main character never knew was there, it represents psychologically something that was hidden within Luthen that he never knew about.
Yep.
He doesn't want to kill the population. He wants it to stop. And Clea is the hope for the future that he must protect. This means that he has a need to protect her. Because she represents something that is worth fighting for. The future, because she's a child. That's always how it works. And we hear his name over the radio, Lear, which is, of course, Rail.
Sergeant Lear.
Rail backwards.
That's right.
And if, both you and I were like, okay, maybe King Lear. Maybe.
I mean, listen, I do think it was deliberate. It's fairly obvious to me they didn't go that deep with the reference. So for anyone who isn't familiar with the story of King Lear from Shakespeare, he is King of Britain. He has 3 daughters, and he's going to divide his kingdom among them, but he wants to hear how much they love him. And the first 2 daughters flatter him and just, basically perform love that they don't actually feel. And then the last daughter says, I don't need to prove my love to you. Like, I love you, and you don't, I'm not going to sit here and flatter you because it's real. And he gets angry at her and disowns her. And then a whole tragedy plays out in which he eventually discovers that she was the only one that really loved him, but it's too late.
Yeah.
So... And there's not a lot of that happening here, to be honest.
Yeah, there's not a lot of that. And also, there's a lot of themes of, you can't plan for everything. You can't, you have to look with your eyes and not with just, your ears. That sort of idea. You have to have enough wisdom to understand what the truth is actually there. But, so the connections are quite weak, in our opinion, to Lear, even if it's purposeful that they use that name.
Yeah. I think it's mostly about the fact that he has the daughter, the favored daughter.
The favored daughter, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's it. And also, he sort of treated those that were like his children in a way that caused them to be burned up and, tragedies to befall them. Yeah. Maybe that's as close as we can get. I'm not sure.
Yeah, not a whole lot else.
He reaches out his hand to Clea, which it's great. We like a good hand reach scene in Star Wars.
Yes, always.
But then we flash back to present Clea heading towards the hospital. I'm obsessed with this hospital and its triangle lights. They're everywhere.
Yep.
Dedra is waiting there to have him wake up. And the doctor's like, he's not waking up.
Yeah. Doctor's like, I don't think so.
I don't know about this lady. Clea sort of fakes a wounded hand and sneaks in. I love how smart she is in this moment. She grabs clothes from a locker and is very strategic about her moves and what she needs to do.
Yeah, and it's important to understand that she is making this all up on the fly, and that's made very, very obvious. And that's something that I feel like has been really missing from this spy show. I was excited for a lot of like cool spy stuff, and pretty much all the cool spy stuff is just Clea in this episode.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest with you, Clea got all the cool spy stuff.
We got Cassian dressing cool, but he almost immediately was like,
then he kind of noped out.
Yeah, it's like,
well, like okay, well, like he noped out. Plus, even the persona he got was given to him.
mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like he invented that himself. So the fact that like Clea is just making this all up as she goes, she is the master spy.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it sort of makes me think like that's going to be her job in the future in the rebellion because she's so good at it.
Yeah,
oh my gosh,
she's going to be the new Luthen for sure. Yeah, so so she's watching the cameras, stealing the scrubs and everything.
And we have Hirt confront Dedra, and she's under arrest. And Dedra's like, I did all the cool stuff.
Yeah,
she's shocked.
And this is the first place that I want to kind of like drop a pin in this for us to return to it later when we're taking a kind of a high level view of these 3 episodes. But I want everyone to understand that like Dedra's story kind of ends here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we'll talk about what that means later. But this is it for her.
Yep.
She's done after this.
She becomes an NPC after this.
Yep. Exactly.
If you had to use video game terms.
Yep.
Young Clea uses a patient to sneak further, and I love this old lady.
Oh my gosh, she's so great.
I love this old lady.
We have needed aliens. We have not had enough, and so I really loved having her.
This episode gave us more aliens and hollows than the rest of this season combined.
Exactly. I know what I'm saying. Like, this whole arc was all like, oh, clearly they just held the whole budget for this. So yeah.
So we have young Clea and Luthen, and they have some sort of treasure that they've either found or had. Mm-hmm. And it enters into this negotiation to sell it for an amount of money. And I loved this scene so much because it not only showed Clea's natural abilities to sort of read a situation and understand the quickest path to get what you want, but also that she is not super emotional because, frankly, she's like grown up too fast because of the experiences of her childhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
After the negotiation, she asks Luthen on their way out, "Am I your daughter now?"
Because he said that. She goes, "Is this your daughter?" And he sort of, there's a beat where he pauses for just a split second, and then he goes, "Yes." And then so it's, "Am I your daughter now?"
And he says, "When it's useful."
Yep.
"I'm Luthen, you're Clea."
Yep.
We will become what we need to become, basically. And sometimes it'll come to us, and sometimes it'll be we have to become what we are. And he's like, "Does that upset you?" And she's like, "I'm not upset. I'm just hungry." And then he like flashes the cash, and they're going to go and eat.
Yeah, but that's there too. I want to go to like the consumption thing because they are often eating together. This is one of a few scenes where they eat together. So I think that's really important that they show that.
They eat in a restaurant later. They eat then. Yeah. Back to Clea in the hospital, and she's moving forward and kind of thinking about things. As this happens, it flashes back to, it's a Deveronian victory necklace. Those are the guys with the horns.
One other quick note, briefly, is that as she was sneaking through the hospital, one of the tactics that she uses to try to get past the guards is she invents a daughter for the old woman that she's pushing around. And so I just
daughter's up there. Yeah.
Right. And I want to point out that like there is definitely the repetition of the daughter as well in this. Like there was just before this, it was, "Am I your daughter?" And now it's, well, she has a daughter up there. And so, they do try to emphasize it a few times.
This is a Deveronian victory necklace. So they're in the flashback time, and it's a beautiful necklace that they're trying to sell to this person. Deveronians are the Vizago from Rebels is Deveronian. They're the guys with the 2 horns.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Oh, I forgot completely. I love that.
Clea is actually distracted because there's a firing squad because some attacks have happened, and so they keep on finding people to kill and they keep on killing them, and so she is she's sort of like fascinated and like sort of wants to witness this horrors, because
she feels a responsibility to bear witness, which I thought is very interesting, and Luthen does not. He kind of, to be honest, he almost kind of freaks out. He's like, I'm out of here. I can't watch that. Like, he doesn't want to see it. You know, similar to how at the beginning, of course, he was make it stop. Like he cannot deal at all with
he is so very rarely in the action throughout these 2 seasons. He is always sort of like moving chess pieces across the board and not actually getting his hands dirty.
Yes, very much. That is absolutely kind of how he is, and that's why he doesn't do anything until he turns the bleeder on himself. That's the only time we see him actually perform real violence, to be honest.
And Lonnie, right? But
right, and Lonnie, but even then, that's off screen. But so one other thing I do want to briefly mention here. I know we said we would hold most of our critique to the end, but I do want to call this out. I was a little disturbed by the fact that there are so few Black characters in season 2, and they focus in this scene on a Black boy being led to his death. He has a chain around his neck. Yeah. And this is another one of those, okay, there was a choice made here. And I don't love it. We'll get to sort of how this factors into a larger pattern in Andor at the end of the episode, but like I was a little upset when I saw this.
Yeah.
So
it's there's been a lot of I don't know what to say, but even in the fandom there's been some racism since the episodes have dropped, and it's like I don't know what to tell you. They missed the mark if they were trying to really take a good stab at fascism, because they don't understand what makes fascism.
Right. And we're going to come back to that, because fascism is not just a political system that stands on its own. It is enmeshed with a lot of other systems. And in order to truly oppose fascism, you actually have to oppose all of the systems that support it. Yeah. And they don't really do that in this show. So anyway, just an example of that happening. But they do. They line them up against the wall for execution. Luthen bails because he's freaked out. He's like, I'm leaving. And Clea watches it, but is also kind of like upset by what. Well, she's angry. She
angry.
Responds with anger.
Yeah, but to me, this like ties back to like when she spoke to Cassian about witnessing the Gorman massacre. It's like,
you should be ready to fight.
Yeah, you should be like the first one going. Yeah, like why aren't you angry like I was when I was a kid? Right. And
when do we start fighting back?
When do we start fighting back? And it's like, no, we lose until we're ready. And this really reminded me of, and I apologize, I don't remember which son it was, but Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s son, during the Black Lives Matter protests, he said, this is going to fail, but hopefully we fail better next time. And it just really reminded me of that. It's like some action is better than no action.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but I also liked that what he follows up with, because after he says that, then he says, all you know now is how much you hate. You bank that. You hide that. You keep it alive until you know what to do with it. And when I tell you to move, you move. So here we see the origin of the move comment that was at the beginning of the episode, but also is understanding that he's not saying don't be angry, like, so it's not the Jedi message, right, of anger is the path to the dark side. It's no, anger is useful to you, it's a tool, you're going to use it, but you hold it until it's useful to you.
Exactly. Clea climbs up the stairs to the 19th floor. I was sent for Dr. Nash. And then, of course,
shoots the guy
and then preps to blow up another location and thinks back to a different time in a restaurant where they are consuming food on Naboo.
I know. I was so excited to see Naboo.
I was like, oh, Naboo.
Well, it's not just that you get to see Naboo again, but you get to see it from a different perspective. Because when you're there viewing it as Padme's home world, it's so beautiful and idyllic and perfect, and it's the greatest, right? It is paradise. But when you see it through Luthen and Clea's eyes, especially when it has been taken over by the Empire and everything, then there's this whole point made about, they're sitting there in these beautiful clothes and eating this delicious food on this terrace and everything, and you start to see the breakdown of wealth in the galaxy, and you know this because of the fact that later Luthen and Clea have to perform high society roles.
Yep.
And so this is the beginning of them doing that, but we are made to understand that this is fake. And so I thought that was so interesting, the juxtaposition of this luxurious vision of Naboo and the brutality that they're about to enact on the Empire.
Exactly. I love her little drink. It has the little like sort of straw, like cookie straws or whatever.
Yes, the pirouettes or
and Luthen is like showing her what to do. Like, don't look at what is about to explode. Look away, and then
you're going to give yourself away. Don't do
it.
That.
You know. And also, he's trying to tell her to like, in a very Jedi way, stay in the moment, appreciate everything around you, and what we stand to lose. It was almost like be aware of the living force from a Qui-Gon Jinn perspective.
Well, it's he wants her to make this choice actively. He doesn't want her to just fall into it just because of her rage or whatever. He wants her to fully understand the implications of what she's doing.
Yes.
Like he doesn't want her to press the button without full knowledge and acceptance of responsibility. And so he actually doesn't let her do it. He presses the button. And so that I thought that was very interesting, is as much as this whole thing is set up to be her kind of basically making her first kill, so to speak, he still chooses to do it.
Yes, he does. Clea is kicking her ass on the way to Luthen.
Yep.
Just absolutely amazing.
I love it.
How like what she does and how skilled she is as a spy person who needs to infiltrate a place forcibly or otherwise. She enters the room, she closes the blinds. This felt very real, as you know, somebody who has had to say goodbye to two parents. She cries, she kisses him on the forehead as she removes the sort of ventilator connection. And as we pan back, we see that the ventilator end piece looks like a little crown, and the king is dead.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that the writers themselves have called out that this is the father and daughter of the rebellion, but there is a lot of foils to Leia.
Yeah. Yes.
In Clea as a character. Clea, Leia, they sound similar. It's like Killer Leia. Yeah, it is. You're right? And right. It's like when somebody is raised in a place of survival and of desperation versus sort of hope and care, you know, like, and what that produces for the galaxy itself. Right. It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. There definitely, the show has things to say about class.
Yeah.
And I think that Luthen and Clea are a great example. So, yeah.
That's the end of the episode as we fade out on Luthen. All right. On to the next episode, episode 11. Who else knows? So we enter directly into the aftermath of what has happened. The hospital is now filled with stormtroopers, and Hirt is confronting the hospital director who's like, why aren't you opening my doors? And I loved his callback. It's like, you're getting in my way. And if you're getting in my way, you're a suspect and suspects need to be arrested. It was great. He was very like flexing of his muscles this episode. Dedra is sitting in a box, which Cyril was in.
Yep. Yeah. She's in an interrogation cell. Krennic comes in. He turns off the cameras before entering, which is how we know that he's, probably going to get physical with her. And he comes in and he asks, who else knows? And she kind of plays dumb for a minute, and he forces her to say it, Death Star, that it's the only thing that would bring him here is risk to that project. And, she knows about it, even though she shouldn't. And then my favorite thing that to me is just such a missed opportunity in this whole episode, but he accuses her of being a rebel spy.
Yeah.
And I gotta be honest that I thought this episode was going in a very different direction than it did. And I thought that Dedra was going to be key to that. And I thought that this accusation of being a rebel spy was going to play out in a very different way.
Really? I had no faith that they would let her out of that cell. Nope.
I just didn't understand why they would build up this character the way they did if they were ultimately not going to do anything with her.
I think that they viewed many of the people in the Empire as in the metropolitan sense of how the workers are part of the machine. They are part of the cogs of the imperial machine that are used up, and they wanted to drive that home with her.
But the Empire also contains the seeds of its own destruction, and I think there could have been
never got that.
Right, and there could have been a cool message contained in the idea that there was an opportunity for Dedra to be the one that brought them down, and not even intentionally. She didn't have to do it on purpose, but it could have happened. So I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but let me just briefly explain what I mean. When I realized that there was going to be an extraction in this episode, I thought that they would come to extract Clea, and it would go wrong. Something would go wrong, and Clea would not make it. I didn't want that to happen. I love the character, but I thought that's where they were going, because then the question of who else knows the information that Clea was going to share with the rebellion? Dedra. Dedra would become the only person who knew, and suddenly the extraction is to get Dedra out, which everybody involved would hate. Cassian would hate that. He would not want to do that, but he would have no other option other than to do this because they need the information. And then Dedra, either because, she provides the information, maybe they have to resort to these terrible things to get it out of her, or maybe she's so pissed at how the Empire betrayed her and undermined her that she turns just out of spite and gives it to them just to bring them down, just to show them how powerful she is and that she could bring them all down. My point is, the opportunity was there to bring Dedra's story to fruition, to a satisfying conclusion that makes sense for her character, that, respects what they've built her to be. And instead, they made her a cautionary tale.
They did, yeah. There's a lot of cautionary tales in this.
You bad little girl, we're going to punish you. And listen, I know she's a villain. I get it. I understand. And, I'm not saying I want good things to happen to bad people, but the fact of the matter is that the way the rest of this scene plays out, I mean, listen, Dedra got manually strangled by Cyril in the last arc.
Yeah. And then finger on the head by Krennic, and then he grabs her face and head and shoves her back in the chair. Yeah. And it's like there's something that's just so I don't know. It's weird. I appreciated the scavenger line.
Yeah,
a lot. Yes, I'm a scavenger, but I had to be because it shows more the types of archetype that she's probably in, which is still she is still a vixen. She is still like in this obsessed with being the best girl in the class.
Yeah, but the narrative punishes her for it.
Yeah,
she's like, and there's a little too much. It's just more violence against women, and now with multiple characters, and also then you have after this she's abandoned and she's vaguely useful to men, but otherwise she's completely abandoned. And I mean, you could say all you want, like, oh, they're just trying to show that that's how the empire is and blah 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 blah. And I get it, but
there could be more about the Nemec speech being real. Yeah. Right? Like the seeds of the destruction of the empire are already within it, meaning anybody can turn against the empire at any moment, not just people that had already turned before the cameras were turned on. Yeah. I.e. Lonnie.
Yeah. Well, they missed an opportunity for complexity. They missed an opportunity for, a really cool, interesting drama, for more action. Like, how much more fun would the extraction have been if they had to break into ISB headquarters? Come on, how cool would that be? That's a great, finale, mission. It was just weird to me, some of the things that they passed on. And so this to me, this scene, it's like, I love Krennic. He's amazing. The way he delivers every single line is incredible. He brings a menace to the show that is far more intense, I think, than anything else we've seen. Just his overall, the threat level. Like, you get it. You get what the danger is because of him and the way he conducts himself. And so there's so many great things about it. And at the same time, there are a lot of things in this scene which make me uncomfortable and make me feel like they're the beginning of that pattern of some of the things that went wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's definitely a pattern of the writers of this season understood fascism, but didn't understand all of the things that play into fascism.
They understood it to a point, and they had blind spots for other things.
Yes, and partially it's because of the culture that we live in is one that leans into fascism.
Yeah. There's a reason why a lot of this stuff is happening right now. And it's not.
And these scripts were written
a few years ago,
3 years ago. Like, it's not like this is something that they knew would happen now.
Right. It's not, and this is where I think it's critical to understand is it's not just that, bad guys gained power. It's like, no, these ideas took hold in the population.
Yes.
And I think that's the struggle here is that, here at the very end of this story, they do try to kind of break it down into good guys and bad guys, and all the good guys end up on Yavin and all the bad guys are dead or in a cell, right? And they try to sort of cleanly make that break, and that's not accurate to how fascism works, and it's also not what Star Wars has ever been historically.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, all of that to say, we go then and we see Hirt reviewing the security footage.
And how cool Clea is.
Yeah, she's digging the pulse radio out of the wall. As they identify her on the footage, then she starts sending an emergency message to Yavin.
Yeah. And Will's like, wait, that's making noise.
Yeah.
And Trina's like, what are you hiding from me? Why do you have a second phone?
Yeah, exactly.
No, honey, I'm not cheating on you. I'm not cheating on you. I don't have a radio to call my lady a solar system over. No, this is the emergency radio for my good friends who I owe a little bit.
Okay.
And then we get to go and actually have time with K2SO. And it's been, I was shocked. He was not, I was shocked they didn't use Alan Tudyk more this season.
So I have to say, so as much as I know, I said that the last episode was my favorite episode of the whole season. And it is. When we got to the end of that episode and I was like, because I was like, We didn't see any Cassian. We didn't see any K2SO. I was like, there's going to be so little of them. And here we are, the second, this is the second to last episode, and we are 15 minutes in before we see the title character, much less his buddy, who we've all been waiting 2 whole seasons for.
Yeah, Kyle was like, it's like they pulled a Book of Boba Fett episode with episode 10. I'm like,
oh my God.
Okay, Star Wars, we get it. It's a galaxy of stories, but okay, there's problems. Can we just all agree there's some problems?
I'm not always going to say give the people what they want, but oh my God, what is their justification for this? And I've seen the whole Tony has said that, K2SO is really hard to write for because, he's so basically his argument is that he's OP, he's overpowered, and therefore he ruins any action scene, which I think is straight up BS because he's great in a lot of Rogue One. So I don't know where that comes from. But anyway, regardless, I love K2SO, but also like Cassian's your title character and you're ending up at the very, very end of this show. He needs to feature heavily into it. And like I said, he's just now showing up. And yeah, so anyway, as much as I was excited, I was also super frustrated when we got to this scene. But
I love this scene.
Playing the game, and it's super, super fun. The whole gambling scene is a delight.
K2SO, Cassian, it's so cute. It reminded me of MASH. I don't know if you ever watched that show growing up. It just reminded me of hey, we're around the the army tent, and we're playing a game of poker, or we're playing whatever we are in there. And Melshi and Cassian are working together.
Yeah.
And Kay is like,
with Kay.
This probability is really unlikely, and I love K2SO so much, and we got so little of him.
We got so little, but it was a wonderful scene. So I'm really delighted that as little as we got, I thought the scene itself was really great. Really liked it.
Yeah. And then we get Wilmon interrupting them with the Cass. And I have to say, I've become very attached to Cassian being called Cass.
Yeah, me too.
I really love it. So like when he came in with that, I was like, oh man, yeah, I really like calling him Cass. Like it's really good for me. We flashed the ISB, and they're talking about what to do about now that they've discovered that, hey, it's Clea.
Yeah.
What do we do about her? How do we track her down? They have to sort of do a wide woman search for her.
Yeah.
And Partagas has a great idea. She's diseased, she escaped hospital, and there's going to be a plague. And I love this idea because it actually is sort of like how many people within authoritarian cultures view the spread of rebellion against them. It's like a plague. If you interact with rebels, you have caught the plague.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, and they reference it later in the next episode as well.
Yes.
The way it keeps spreading, so to speak.
Keeps spreading. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Krennic has to leave for Scarif. Am I missing something? I always thought he wasn't really hanging around Scarif, unless Scarif is where the Death Star is being constructed. That
was not what I took it. See, Scarif was just
it's just it's
just the Imperial Archives.
Yeah, it's just the archives. I mean, it's a beautiful, easy job to be there, but why was he going to Scarif?
Maybe don't know.
People just remember that name.
I don't know. It didn't make sense for him to be going to Scarif because I don't think that's where it was being constructed. I actually don't remember where it was being constructed, but I know it was somewhere else. I would need to look it up. But anyway, that was confusing. Again, it felt just more like referencing stuff. I mean, there's a lot of things, especially in these final 2 episodes, where they have more or less no impact on the characters. They're just there to kind of line up the dominoes for Rogue One.
I mean, I think I commented on this maybe last episode. I really am bothered by the plot checklist.
Yes, the plot checklist is frustrating. I would not have minded a few, continuity
fudging.
Some continuity fudging. There you go.
For the sake of cares.
Stronger character stories. So it's this one's pretty minor, but it's still weird. So he and Partagaz are fighting about who's responsible for this. They're arguing. They both know that they're at risk, that, if they don't catch her and if word gets out, or, the security of the project is put at risk, that they both know that their butts are on the line. So they're kind of sniping at each other about whose fault it is. Back on Yavin, they're arguing about security, and then the transmitter goes off again. So it kind of confirms to them, oh, this actually is a call for help. And then Cass kind of jumps into action, and he's like, all right, we're taking the U-wing. We're going, hey, you're coming with me, Melshi, you're coming with me. Here we're going. We're forget protocol. We're just going to go.
He's like, do you hear me? And he's like, I hear the Revnog talking, which is, of course, just a type of alcohol that has been in Andor since the beginning.
Yep.
It was used on the first planet that the corporate planet that he goes and visits and kills that guy. Yeah. Those guys, the first episode. Yeah, Revnog.
Yes. No, you're right. So then there's, like the joke about K2SO is like, I've been counting the orders that we've disobeyed and everything. So here's the only kind of minor issue with this part, which is that I can't figure out Cassian's characterization with regard to orders. On the one hand, there seems to be very little that he does without being instructed to do so by someone else. There's really, he just kind of does what people tell him to do. Even if he's, upset about it or annoyed by it and doesn't really want to, he's still always kind of following orders at some point, especially Luthen's. But then in these two episodes, they make a big point about how he's not following orders and he has no respect for authority or protocol or blah, 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 right? And that sort of leaves me uncertain of how they're setting him up for Rogue One, because in Rogue One, the whole thing is he's following orders. He's doing what Draven told him to do. When he is instructed to kill Galen Erso, he's gonna do that because that's what he was ordered to do. And then his whole kind of character starts changing when he chooses not to kill Galen and
chooses to go after the Death Star plans.
Yes, and he tells Jin, I disobeyed orders, and it shows that it helps her trust him, and then it shows why he then is willing to disobey orders again to go rogue with her later to go to Scarif.
It just feels like he's doing this all the time.
Right. So it's like if he has a reputation of just ignoring orders all the time, then how does that make sense for his sort of big character turn in Rogue One? So this is where I get back to, again, they were more focused on the plot, setting up the plot, and not setting up the characterization.
Yeah.
So that I did struggle with that a bit here.
Yeah. I thought they were doing something with Luthen was on the 19th floor, and then they've disobeyed 18 orders, and then I thought they were doing something with that, but they weren't.
Nope.
Disappointment.
Back to Dedra.
He's dead, isn't he? Disappointment. And yes, she is useful to another man.
Yeah, she's useful to him. And that's the last time we see her until her final shot of
and she says, his assistant, she's got to know something. The assistant, they had this radio, right? So she knew about the radio, and that leads him where he needs to go. So frustrating.
Yeah. No, I hate it. I'm just going to be straight here. They did Dedra dirty.
Yeah.
They did. They did not carry her story through in a way that did the character justice. So, oh well. So Wilmon to Draven.
Yeah, Draven is super frustrated with Wilmon. Luthen calls and you come running, and Wilmon's like, "This was a final call, and none of you would be here without Luthen."
Okay. That's another thing. Okay, and we're gonna get to this later, but they lay it on thick
Yeah.
with how much the rebellion owes Luthen. And I gotta tell you, there's a point at which I think it goes a little too far. And I'm like, listen, he's important. Agreed. Definitely. But
we never see the other side of the story of why all of these very important, powerful alliance like people who are part of the council hate his guts. We know a little bit about why they hate Saw's guts, but we don't really know why they hate Luthen's guts.
Like, well, and not only that, but like because all of the alliance coming together happened off screen, we don't actually know what role he played in it. So it's hard to say how much of it is he actually responsible for. Like, I was perfectly willing to buy he's responsible for the intelligence apparatus. That always made sense to me. Like, he is the spy master. Okay, great. I'm down for that. That makes sense to me. But when the minute it became, also he built the entire rebellion, all of a sudden I'm like, whoa.
No.
Like,
trust me, bro.
Yeah, I'm like, what about Bail? What about Ahsoka? What about all these
Callus? The rebels, the Phoenix Squadron.
Yeah, all these other people that we know were instrumental in building the rebellion, but no, we've decided it's all Luthen.
Yeah, it just felt like how do you describe this? The writers wanted to protect their darling.
Yeah, well, it felt similar to the critique that we sometimes have of like Filoni's posture towards Ahsoka and how like she's his baby, and so he kind of like has blinders on when it comes to her.
Not like, that Luthen isn't cool, but
no, Luthen is a cool character, just like Ahsoka's a cool character. I'm not. Again, this isn't so much a critique of the character; it's a critique of this, the perspective of the writers and the directors, the creatives on this. Like, there's a lot of glorifying white men. There's a lot of that, or just men in general, at least. Yeah. But the thing is, even the men of color are written from I would argue, like a white male perspective.
Yeah.
Like, so so this is the beginning of it. And then in the next episode, you'll hear them say this constantly. Constantly about Luthen. So we'll get to that.
And I have to tell you, like, they wrote Bail in such a nasty way. Like,
he's like mean. What's up with that?
And like not kind. And he has always been a kind character.
Well, like, I'm sorry, Bail's characterization to me has always been soft girl dad. He's soft girl dad Bail, and there's no soft girl dad Bail in this. And
he like protects Jedi, and like he's putting himself out there, and like they wrote him in this like mean way. Like I'm like it's incongruous with how I view Bail.
No, it's weird. It doesn't really make sense, and it's and it like we got a hint of it last arc when he said that line about like tear the shit out of this place, and I was like, what? I was like,
who are you, Bail?
Like, who are you? Like, and
time to go rewatch Kenobi.
I know they're trying to like graft this weird like tough guy persona onto him, and that's just not who he is, and that's okay. Not everybody has to be that guy.
Strong Leia.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Leia sort of became way more vicious than Bail ever was.
Yeah.
Because Bail was always the politician. That was his shtick. That was how he did things. And so he would have been the person kind of like smoothing things over, not the one kind of standing in the way. So anyway, we'll get to that. But
the U-wing is so pretty, by the way.
I do like the U-wing. And then we have the Imperials are inspecting the ruined comms. By the way, this is just completely random, but I don't know if you saw the actress that is the, like, whoever's the radio expert or whatever.
Yeah.
She's Queen Mary in My Lady Jane.
Oh, that's where I knew her from.
Right. Because I was like watching, I was like, why does she look so familiar? And I was like, that's why. Side note, completely and totally unrelated, watch My Lady Jane.
Yeah, totally watch My Lady Jane.
So good. So good. But anyway, she plays Queen Mary and she's hilarious. She's another character absolutely chewing up the scenery in that. And so that's why I like that they gave her like a funny, quirky little character in this. I love that she's really nerding out about what they did with the comms.
She's like, they're funny. Really good at this.
Yeah, she's like, wow, this is impressive. Yeah. So funny.
She has all the makings of a rebel.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the Ewing approaches Coruscant, and Melchi's never been to Coruscant, and we get the best K2XO line.
Yes.
I've been to Coruscant. 200 KX units. The Emperor was there.
Yes.
And this was so interesting, and I loved it because that means he remembers everything he's ever done.
Yep.
And I love it.
I love that too. I like the idea that they
kept his good and his bad.
Yeah, like they changed his loyalty, but ultimately he is still the same character, and I thought that was really cool.
Which also makes sense why he knows how to do things when they enter into the Imperial bases, and it fleshes out K2SO in one line. And so this is my point.
Yes,
it doesn't take much. A single line can make a difference.
Right. And that's why I don't buy the whole they had to condense 5 seasons down into 1 and it was just too hard. I'm like, no. I was like, if you're good
that
writers,
sounds like a skills issue.
Yeah, it sounds like a skill issue. Yeah, exactly. So if you're good writers, you can figure this out because that one line, to your point, it makes a significant difference in his character. And I did love it. I love just the creepy reverence he has when he says the Emperor was there. Ooh, good stuff. I love that.
So good.
Cassian messages Clea and Atmo, and the ISB intercepts it.
Yep, because they just happen to be looking at the radio because of what Dedra gave them.
Yep.
So they call in tactical, and they're zoning in on where they are. Cassian takes the wheel, takes the pilot stick, and K2 hangs on to the holy shit handle.
I love it. It's so fun.
It's just little moments, and they head towards the building that they keep on using this whole season to come back to on Coruscant.
Yep.
There's a comms check, and Kay says, "I don't like it here."
Yeah.
I love him.
So cute.
And we get a holo.
Finally. Right? Yeah.
We get a holo of Clea's face. We had a holo, I think, when they were talking about her before in ISB.
Yeah, in the headquarters.
But I'm
room.
just like Holos, where were you this whole time? Did they forget for a moment?
No holos until the last arc. So they get there. They have the holo, and so on level 27, they make a big deal out of going down the hallway, and this is where I didn't necessarily consciously get it at first, but after a while it became clear to me. I was like, oh, they're setting up for a hallway scene.
Yeah.
TM,
And I'm not sure where, this is it was made very famous by Daredevil, but I'm tired of them.
Yeah. I'm kind of over it at this point. I'm just and it's, listen.
They spent a lot of time on this hallway, and they could have had a few other lines from other characters that we needed. Yeah.
Well, this is an overall point of where they spent their time. When I say where, I don't just mean on what, I mean literally physical locations. It is bizarre to me how much time we spent in the same places over and over and over again.
Could have been a cost thing. It could have been,
maybe
we had this hallway and we had this other thing built, and
we had to use it.
I guess, yeah.
But it's when you constantly retread old ground like that, it makes you feel like you're not making any progress.
Yeah, you're not making any movement in your journey.
Right. So that's a big problem in this season overall. And it's so different compared to last season because in season 1, each of the arcs takes place in a completely different location.
Yeah.
Whereas in this season, every arc keeps going back to the same location.
Yeah, again, to this little place.
And again.
This little apartment in Coruscant.
It's exhausting. So
communication disruption can only mean one thing. Invasion. K2SO says, uh-oh, as they arrive.
Yes, he's so cute.
And
they
Cass,
open the door.
Is this it? It's been a while. They knock the door. Luthen, it's me. It's Cassian. And Clea says, it would be you.
Right. Yeah. And I have to say, because up to this point she's been in kind of survival mode, I don't think she's really had the opportunity to kind of completely fall apart. But this is where you start to see it happen, where you're like, oh, she's wrecked. She's not in good shape, like emotionally, psychologically, which we would expect. But the point is that she's been so focused on like, I just got to do what I got to do and everything, that now that she's not alone, suddenly she's like really devastated.
And shout out to Elizabeth Dulau.
Oh my God.
Like, she
amazing.
I read an article that she like literally graduated acting school and then was cast in this. And I'm like, oh,
it's
woman,
her first job.
You have like such a resume now.
Yes, such a future ahead of her.
And Tony gave her more this season because she was so good in the last season with the scenes she stole. So I am wishing for her to have nothing but the best in everything she wants.
I love when Star Wars casts relative unknowns and then they go on to do big things. That is my favorite thing that happens. I love it.
We cheer them on for the rest of their careers.
Yes.
I hope actually we see her in Star Wars again. I think it would be amazing to see her back at some point.
Bring Clea back. Oh my gosh. Could you imagine Clea versus Kira? How fun would that be?
That would be so fun.
Oh my God. I would love it. I need it now. I also saw somebody recommending Clea and Afra, which I thought was also a cool idea.
I've heard her being compared to Winter a lot, the Legends character. You know, I loved her as a character, and I feel like she could have a place in the Mandalorian cinematic universe, but she'd have to be
a lot older though.
Yeah, she would just like destroy everybody with her awesomeness. Okay. K2SO decides to be awesome, and so he is awesome.
Yep.
And the ISB shows up on the wrong floor and disturbs the poor family.
And Cassian is spending a lot of time trying to convince Clea to leave. There's lots about Luthen died for this. You owe him. Good thing that he didn't join the team like you did. I mean, this is all implied, but basically it's just like, you know, Cassian's trying to be like, oh, I decided to, to join the rebellion proper, right? I became part of the community and everything. And again, this goes back to how they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. You've got Cassian here talking about how like, well, I left Luthen because I wanted to be part of the community and the rebellion. But then every single time we see him in Yavin, he's kind of a loner. He doesn't really want to interact with everybody else. We never get to see that supposed leadership that he demonstrates. He's always disobeying orders. Like, I'm confused about Cassian's characterization here, but he spends a lot of time in this episode and the next one trying to convince Clea to leave. And I'm just like, I feel like that screen time could have been better used elsewhere.
And I feel like he knew the importance of the mission, and he is so no nonsense. He probably would have just knocked her out by now.
That's what I thought. I was like, I don't understand why he doesn't just drag her out. Let's just go. Like, it's like, it's an extraction. Part of an extraction is that you
called. We're going.
Yeah.
You could have sent a carrier pigeon.
Right.
You didn't want to come.
Exactly.
There's some weirdness about this. I don't.
And like, it's such a weird place to end the episode.
Is he just telling himself? Like, I don't know. But they use the word, where can we go? Yavin. It is the promised land. It is the place that they specifically use it. And the ISB is closing in. Okay. Final episode. Place to
end the episode.
It was weird. I don't know.
Well, yeah. And to go back to like what I said about how like as much as I enjoyed the previous episode, when it ended, I was like, uh-oh, because we hadn't seen so many characters. I felt the same way when this episode ended. This episode ended and I was like, we saw zero Mon.
Yeah.
Where the hell is Mon? Because like there's this big deal made about her, you know, fleeing the Senate and everything and going to lead the rebellion on and we don't see, she's not doing anything that we know of. We're not seeing her. She's not. And so I knew I was like, this is not, I'm concerned because we're not seeing all of these other characters and what was already set up. I don't think we're going to get the follow through. So I
guess endings are heard.
I guess apparently.
Yavin, after all of this. So we're moving on to episode 12, Jeddah, Kyber, Urso. Yavin, after all of this. The Promised Land, after all of this.
What a bitter ending. And I was like, oh, there's some irony there.
Yeah. But you're keeping Luthen alive. You know, comms are down. K2SO is doing his work to keep the ISB main headquarters from knowing what to do. They go and they're like, okay, we're finally going to go. But it's too late because Melshi goes into the hallway and the ISB is there.
Yeah. And
the scene is pretty well constructed. Like the ISB is going closer and then K2SO comes to the rescue and he's pretty unstoppable. But then they flash back and forth between the main ISB security desk, which can't get any traction because the other warrant is getting in the way of them being able to get backup. There's a stunner that goes off. Melshi is still able to shoot. Cassian protects Clea, tries to wake her up. K2SO gets a gun. I thought this was a big deal in Rogue One that he couldn't get a gun. This is weird. What are they doing? Oh, well.
Yep. Nope, exactly. Just another thing that's like, I'm just confused. Like
maybe he wanted a gun because he had one before. I don't know.
I don't know.
Whatever. There's a lot of I don't knows. He uses hurt as a shield. It's so bad. It's so like, it's not bad. It's just like disturbing.
Yeah, I don't know. What I struggle with most in the last two episodes, but especially this one, the final episode, is so confused about the things that get screen time. And this whole sequence was just weird. And that it lasted as long as it did. And
they wanted to show that K2SO was cool as Darth Vader, just like how they wanted to show how Luke was as cool as Darth Vader. No? Am I missing something?
You're wrong. I'm trying to tell you I'm tired.
Okay.
I'm tired. But yes.
I don't know. I can write for guys, I guess.
I know. There's a joke about
I miss characters.
I know. There's a joke about that somewhere. I forget how it went, but there's something to the effect of like, or not a joke, but just like a statement, an observation to the effect of like, women have an easier time writing men because almost everything that we ever read or consume is about men and for men and written by men and from their perspective. But a lot of men really, really struggle to relate to women well enough to write them well. And obviously that's not it's not every person, but not all men, but it is very common. And that's why there are entire hilarious social media accounts based entirely around men writing women and just how funny they sound. What's the famous example? There's a joke like her breast bounce boobily or something like that. I mean, I'm being a little excessive here, but like the overall gist of like, there was nothing in this for us. In this sequence, I was just like, okay, I get it. You guys you're going to get her out. Can you just get her out so that we can move on to the
actual like catharsis and moments of everything that has happened and the lead up? No. Okay. Cassian, I've cleared a path. Thank you, Kay. I love you.
I love him. And we have to say thank you to Kay because Cassian apparently doesn't thank Kay, which also I was confused by. Like, very weird. Like, why is Cassian so cold to Kay? I don't get it.
Treats him like a toaster.
Yeah, totally weird. Back on Yavin, Mon is arguing. We finally see Mon, and she's arguing with Saw.
No. Kay also has another. I hope any doubts of my value have been erased. You're welcome. Right. What?
Yeah.
Is this the first time they've ever left Yavin? Has Cassian literally been sitting on his ass for a year?
Playing, like, gambling
poker?
for a year? I don't know, man.
Like, what?
It's so confusing because, like, Okay, so remember how last episode I said, like, oh, I'm so sad that we're gonna miss all of the, like, the building trust and a rapport and them going on their first mission together, and like, I was so excited for that stuff and I knew we were gonna miss it. I saw somebody, a guy, of course, saying on Blue Sky sometime this week about how glad they were that they weren't gonna waste any time on Cassian and K2SO building trust. And I just was so flabbergasted because I'm like, do you like stories? Do you like characters? I don't understand. Like, the way people fall so cleanly into the stereotype of Star Wars fans being like pew pew swing swing. Like, do we care about anything else? Jesus. Anyway, sorry. I told you I wouldn't lose it, but this episode will do it to me.
I am disappointed.
Yeah. I'm disappointed. I just was like, Cassian, like Bail,
the key character moments are worth it, guys. Like, they're really important. They're really important.
Right. It mattered to see their relationship develop, and we didn't. And then that makes lines like that make no sense. You don't have context for that line. You don't know. Is Cassian being a dick, or like, what is happening here?
So earlier on Blue Sky, I tweeted out the famous meme about, like, hey, the hologron tweeting out that, hey, did you know that Exegol, that all of these ships were manned by Sith Eternals that have been raised by the Sith to fight the rest of the galaxy? And the reply is Elijah Wood saying, no, how could we?
Yeah, how could we have known?
How could we have known? And I posted that, and I said it specifically about something that happens later on in this episode. Yeah. But there's so many little moments that are, I'm gonna say the word, the Rise of Skywalker like, where you have to make the logical leaps to understand why people do things, and it bugs me.
Yeah, you gotta fill in the blanks. At me.
And it's not a freaking fill in the blank. What are those things called? Like when you
Mad Libs.
It's not a Mad Lib Star Wars.
Not Mad Lib Star Wars. Okay, like, for real. But like, this is what drives me crazy. And then I always know, like, the minute you say something like that, then people come back with the whole, like, well, you know, they had to condense 5 seasons into one. I know, and they do too. So they should have been making changes that were going to allow them to show the critical things on screen. And that might have meant making some of these ridiculously long scenes where nothing happens character-wise, making those scenes shorter, and instead leaning into the character moments that would allow us to actually understand the journeys the characters were going on and their emotional state at any given point in time and their posture towards one another in terms of, like, do we have trust? Don't we have trust? How, like, they're, like... These are not character-driven stories in season 2. This is a totally plot-driven story in season 2.
It's reverse of what was season 1.
It's the opposite of season 1. Season 1 was totally character-driven.
It was.
It's just bizarre.
It's so bizarre.
I'm so confused. And I just, like... Well, okay, let's keep going.
Yeah. So Saw at the Rebel base. We see another holo time. Holo.
A good holo, a big holo.
It was so good. I was excited.
Oh, yeah. And like, characters are passionate. Oh my gosh.
And they're having a fight because they're like, we know where you are, Saw. And he's like, nuh-uh.
Yeah, I love the way he's like, no, you don't. You don't know where I am. But it's like, they totally do.
They totally do. Like, and like, you know, like, this is, we do find out later that this is because Cassian has been keeping tabs on him through one of his contacts, who is important in Rogue One. But, you know, Mon's like, come on, guy, like, we're trying to help each other out here. And he's like, if only you could fight as good as you could lie. And it's such a good line. So it's good. But Bail is like a complete jerk.
Why? Oh my gosh.
I don't understand.
I don't. Okay, but also, it's not even just that Bail's a jerk. It's that this is the most lines that Mon gets in the entire episode.
Yeah.
Is the argument with Saw. And other than that, she is quiet and reserved and in the background.
She has one moment, but it's like cut super short, and she has her like Draven like backup.
Yeah, but even that, I'm like, what is going on? So we'll get to that in a minute because they're better examples than this. But,
yeah, Cassian is trying to return home, and
yeah,
they're mad at him. And
Bale's mad about it.
They don't want to let him land, but like everyone's mad at him for going and trying to save Luthen.
No, I mean the justification is they didn't know what he was doing because he didn't tell anyone, and so they didn't know if he was a security risk. And I get it, but they like dragged it out way too much, and like having the whole base turn out with their guns trained on him and then being like, show yourselves, and like that was just excessive. Like, why?
They know who he is. They could,
yeah, like that's just weird.
There was weirdness about this, but so he's around the council of who was there, including like the lady that disagrees with everything and the jerk and Bale, who is off his
also
meds.
Behaving like a jerk. Oh my god. Yeah, so
I don't know, like he's just not, he's just
there.
Yeah, and I do not want to blame Benjamin Bratt because I think he's just freaking awesome. It's the script.
They wrote him this
weird.
way. No, they wrote him this way. Listen, it's not him. I think he's fine. I think that, like I genuinely have no problem with him in this role. I just think they wrote him really weird. It just is not Bale. And so anyway, so they have this whole conversation. Senator Palmo, Mon Mothma, Organa, Draven, Radis. By the way, my boy Radis, so excited to see him. I need you to understand that the way that some people are about Akbar, that's how I am about Admiral Radis. I love him very, very much because he does the coolest stuff in Rogue One. So I am a fan. So
if we rewatch it and we cover it, I will make you like a little mini Admiral Radis fan cam. How's that?
Please do.
Because there's more. There's more footage now.
I know. I will be like, Radis, my boy. Yes, I love him. So I was. It's so funny because like just the way that we were talking about how like so much of Andor was me just anticipating things that I would see that I liked from Rogue One, and I got so little of that. So yes, my reaction to Radis, who did basically nothing in this episode, was probably disproportionate. I was just very excited to see him.
That's fine. I feel like Clea was I felt like Cassian was doing a pretty good job of like trying to convince them like, hey, this is really important, guys. There's a weapon. This has all been a set of lies. And everyone's like, bureaucracy, we paid for that. Like, we've been paying money towards this energy project. You mean it's not about clean, renewable energy?
Yeah, and you're just sitting here going like, it's like every time Trump says he's going to do something, what, you just like believe him? You just take it at face value? Like,
yeah,
really?
Yeah, and so what's really interesting is that Cassian, and so thus the writers, are focused on the stuff that's in Andor and not necessarily what it could mean, because what it could mean is the focus for Rogue One. And so he focuses on, well, like what happened on Gorman ties into this, and what all of these other horrible things that are happening now tie into something. And so it's not just random horror. There has been a point to it. That's what he's trying to get across through the writers. Like, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes any sense.
I think that is what they're trying to do. But this is where you get back to, it just is, it's so overshadowed by, like, so many times I feel like I can see the intent. I can see what they meant to do, but it's very hard to get at from, underneath everything that's happening. So one of the things, to the point about Bale and everything, but like, why is Bale doing all the talking in this? I thought Mon was the leader of the rebellion.
I thought she was too.
The reason she's here is to be the leader of the rebellion. My husband, we're sitting there watching this together for the first time. My husband was like, I don't know. He's like, I don't get it. He's like, Mon is the mother of the rebellion. She should be doing the talking. She should be doing the leadership. Why is she just sitting there? And he was furious. And I was furious. I was like, why is she just sitting there? I don't understand. Who is this person? Like, this isn't the character that we've seen.
I always thought that Bale was Mon's number 2. Was I mistaken?
No, I thought so too. I was
and so why do they have to go and ask permission later? for anything.
Why do they have to come to him and get him to approve it? I don't understand. Like, it was bizarre seeing it. And then in this conversation again, you have then Cassian, for the first time this episode, but certainly not the last, he goes, Luthen Rael died for this. And I'm like, good Lord, the absolute, like the obsession with martyrdom and hero worship, like they will not shut up about it in this episode. And listen, I get that contextually it just happened and, you know, it's a very emotional thing for them and all this other stuff, but it's just...
Find new words to use.
Well, no, but there's gotta be, so the reason that they should care and the reason that they should want to do something is because the galaxy, the community
is at risk.
Yeah. Not just because this one old guy died for it.
And the focus, it's like they lost the thread of that.
Right.
Exactly. Like they had it kind of at the beginning.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because we went into this, you know, having seen season 1 and of course, obviously, Rogue One and being like, oh, there's very clearly a collective myth here. You know, it's about the community coming together to defeat the evil or whatever and the threat. And it's not about a singular hero. And that, you know, that wasn't it. And we thought that would be season 2. And season 2, unfortunately, has leaned really hard into the American monomyth.
It really has.
Yeah, where there is the singular hero, the savior.
Even with the Messiah stuff, like that happened last episode. I was really, I didn't say it out loud and I had meant to, which is like, and I'm like, I have concerns. This is leaning into the American monomyth because of the use of the only Cassian can solve this problem.
Yep.
The beauty of having Rogue One and the team that comes together is that there was something in it that was like people coming together to go and do this.
Yeah, and they do it organically and all for their own reasons, and they all come together and they do it knowing that it's thankless, knowing that their names may not survive, their names may not remember, that the sacrifices they've made for the rebellion may never be known, and this is what they do, and they do it anyway because that's what they're willing to do to save the galaxy, to save the community, and that's why even though it's sad that they all die, it also, you feel the purpose to their deaths because you see that these are people who came together and gave it all. And now this suddenly becomes about, we must worship this one man.
Yeah.
And then that echoes through the rest of it because it's, well, we're worshiping Luthen and we're worshiping Cassian and we're worshiping Bail. And hey, what happened to all the women in this story? Yes, they are background.
Yeah.
like they are supporting cast.
Exactly. I did like this moment where he's like permission to visit the infirmary when he's confined to quarters, and Mon like stands up and says permission granted, and just like actually steps into her actual friggin' role as the leader of the rebellion for 2 seconds. But it's like they forgot. I don't know.
It's weird. And then the next few scenes, I'm just going to blow through them pretty fast because they're really strange. Like, first there's the whole thing about Tivik messaging Cassian from Kafrene.
I mean, Draven, couldn't you have brought that up in the meeting?
Yeah,
like, why does it
important?
It's weird how Draven acts.
Yeah, like, Draven's behavior is very strange.
He's like, I can't say anything out loud in front of other people within the rebellion.
He's also only there for he only does 2 things. He provides exposition to get us from point A to point B in the plot. And he also is like, Cassian, you bad boy, you need to follow orders. And that's it. And that's like the only thing he does in all of this. So so we have the whole thing about Tivik messaging him. Then he visits Clea, but not much happens. She just seems so broken, and it's so sad. We finally see Vel for a hot second. And the funny thing is, again, I was sitting there watching with my husband, and I literally, right before the scene, I was like, where the hell is Vel? I was like, are we just not going to see her at all? She's just going to disappear from the show. We're never going to see her again. Thankfully, she appears. Mon comes to visit, gives news of Luthen, asks Vel to spy on Cassian. And
does not pass the Bechdel test.
Does not pass the Bechdel test again, which is like a whole problem this season, is that all women talk about men. That is the only conversation that they have. With the possible exception of Vel and Cinta, at least. But even then, not really, because remember how they talk about Luthen and how he keeps them apart.
Keeps them apart, yeah.
So even then, like that doesn't really pass either. But anyway, so there's nothing. Cass shares the news with Willman. It's a really weird scene. There's like no music, and he just kind of walks up and tells him, and they hug, and it's just anyway. The rhythm of this episode is bizarre. Like things just happen, but there's no rising tension, and there's just no rhythm to it at all. It's just like stuff happens sequentially. But I want to point out that in this scene with Mon and Vel, they show up and they stand around a table with cups in their hands. And then in the next scene, Vel hangs around a table with Cassian and they have cups in their hands. And then in the next scene, Vel is around a table with Clea with cups in their hands. We get the same scene 3 times in a row. And this is what I'm saying about like, we keep revisiting the same locations, the exact same staging and like events. It's just conversations while drinking around a table. That's all we do in the finale episode.
So
of the
weird.
Show. How is that interesting? How is that entertaining? How is that getting us to the point where we're like, oh my God, the fate of the galaxy is at stake. We have to go save everyone.
Oh no, they had nothing but time.
We're all just chilling. I got my drink here.
Had my tea, had my Revnog.
Had some tea again.
I had some tea again. Like now I go to really pee.
Tell me about it. We go back, and there's another thing about Tivik calling from Kafrene. This is the second time now, so we're just gonna make sure you don't forget. Tivik's still calling from Kafrene.
He had to do it 3 times, right? Because that's important. So he does do it 3 times, right? There's a thing.
Yeah. Cass and Vel toast their fallen comrades. I did like this.
Yeah.
Just because it's just nice to know that not everything was forgotten.
Oh, but he died for it. He has to say it again.
There they go. He died for it. I know. So they had to say it again about, because she asks him, is the news real? Like from Luthen, and he says, oh, he died for it, blah, blah, blah. But then he says this weird thing. He goes, does it matter what he did to us along the way? Does it matter how it twisted him? And I have a few issues here. One is it's like, I don't understand why Luthen gets off the hook. Like why everything that Luthen did is okay now because he's a dead hero.
Because he said a cool thing in the first season that nobody else but Lonnie, who he kills, heard. Like, I don't know. There is some straight up misogyny happening in this episode, and it sucks.
Well, just like, does it matter what he did to us? Yes, it matters. Cinta is dead because of his bullshit. Like, this pisses me off so much. The weird hero worship of the dead martyr man, while his impact on everyone else is completely ignored. The women around him are broken. They are shells of their former selves.
Yeah, Wilmon might never walk again.
Right, he's got a limp now. He doesn't. Yep. This is so weird and messed up. And then the line, none of this exists without him. Again, to go back. Really though? None of this exists without him? What? Again, I'm not sure that I give him that much credit. Like, I
mean, I don't know. It just definitely feels like he's stuck on hero worship of his father figure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's weird.
Yeah. I don't know.
So I'm actually going to jump ahead because there is something I want to mention here. So I feel like everybody forgets what makes Luke Skywalker a hero for the ages. And I'm just going to tell you what does it is his defiance. He defies the parents and mentors. Everybody, all the good guys are telling him that what he has to do is kill his father.
Yep.
And the emperor is telling him that he has to kill his father. Like you've got Yoda and Ben and everybody. Everybody is telling him, kill your father. And he refuses. And his heroism, his heroic moment, all comes down to him choosing to do what he believes is right in defiance of everyone. And so when you have a character like Cassian being like, I just have to fulfill Luthen's legacy.
And when we have that happen in stories where we're like, I'm just living my parents' life, it means that they're stuck in a negative archetype.
Yes. Yeah. And this is why the comparison.
Actually, he's a Snow Queen again.
He is.
Oh.
And this is why the comparison to Tross is so apt, is because Rey
there's so much reversion and there's so much fulfilling of others.
A vessel for Luke Skywalker's legacy. Ugh. Suddenly, Rey's entire role was just to fulfill Luke Skywalker's legacy, and that was it. And that's what Cassian's doing with Luthen. He's just here to fulfill Luthen's legacy, and that's the only thing that matters. And who Cass is, and the decisions Cass makes, and his, who he is and the ways in which he's learned from Luthen, but he's also different from Luthen. Yeah. And we are what they grow beyond. Cassian should become more than what Luthen was.
Yes.
And that's not what we're seeing here.
And given a chance too by the writers. Like that's part of it, is that they felt, I can see them feeling like they were in some sort of bind and couldn't think their way out of it. And so and we'll get to that at the end of the episode, because of the things that they presented to us, we have to take in and be like, oh, so you're saying these three things, and that sucks.
Yeah.
Okay, so Clea goes out into the rain because she is stuck or not wanting to be in the hospital anymore, in the clinic. And we hear Nemec's manifesto, and I was so happy we heard it.
Me too. Oh,
I was so happy. I was like, we haven't heard it all season. And honestly, if it was as pervasive as it was, according to Partagaz, we should have heard it sometime throughout.
The Gormans should have been listening to it.
Yeah. Like it should have just been somewhere, like in the, like somebody turns it off,
in
like you heard,
like
you heard his voice. That would have been the best choice.
It would have been really
for
cool.
This, and to have it be a thread that like you heard it more often, is that as it mounted, would have been
spreads.
So cool.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
The freedom is a pure idea. So Kyle, my husband, thought that Nemec's manifesto was being spread by Partagaz.
Oh my god, that would have been funny. But like,
like it's such a, like, it's not a very clear scene.
No.
There's so much left to like interpretation. The writing, again, like the things that people say is beautiful. The sets are beautiful. The actors are beautiful. But like, there's so many gaps and holes. You can assume a lot of different things. You're like, my headcanon lives in the spaces between Andor.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's so much you have to infer in order to get there. So yeah, no, I can totally see how Kyle would think that. But he's listening to it. He's kind of mesmerized. And when Nemec gets to the part about like oppression is the mask of fear.
Yeah.
He turns it off. And it's because it called him out. It shows, this whole time he's been oppressing others, and it's because he's afraid. And we finally see what he was afraid of, which is now
he's going to be taken in because he's failed.
And we know that failure is unacceptable in the Empire.
And the ISB is so empty. Like that's like he's alone in this room, but like symbolically they've had only 3 people in the room, and now it's down to 1.
Yep.
This season. This shows that the downfall is already underway, right?
Yep.
He can't even hold his position. And so the door closes, his colleague says like, I'll give you a moment or whatever. He's like, I just would like a moment to collect my thoughts.
One more thing real quick though. I want to clarify that when he's kind of, I don't even know what you call it, just considering Nemik's words, he says, "Who do you think it is?" And I love that line because they're very focused on the idea that it's this singular voice, and if they could just stop this singular voice, that they would win. But of course, the whole point is that Nemik has now become the voice of the collective.
Yeah.
And so I love the idea, similar to Luthen's, the rebellion has flown.
Yeah.
It's
those are such good ideas and such good concepts. And like if they had doubled down on that with the feelings of the rebellion itself, I feel like it would have been more successful.
Yeah, I agree. So there's not enough of it, but it is there. So then, like you said, close the door, he's in there. It's not even at that point, it's not even just that the room is empty. It's also that the framing of the shot has him so tiny in it. He's so small in this big empty room. And it's amazing.
Yeah, and he shoots himself and
he kills himself. Yep.
It sucks. This is he was a great villain to enjoy his speeches.
He was great. He was a great example of like the bureaucratic nature of evil and of fascism, and how like, he was always very professional. But he was professional about such terrible things.
Yep.
Right? So
is this the point where we kind of see Clea like moving towards the forest, and then Vel is like talking about like what Cassian is going to do and tries to convince him to reconnect with Bix?
Okay. I didn't love this scene when I first saw it. With the benefit of hindsight, knowing how it ends, I hate this scene because it makes them all look like terrible people.
Yeah, it does.
Like, with the context of what we learn about Bix, this makes Vel terrible. This makes Cassian terrible. It makes Bix terrible. It actually makes all of them terrible. The reason is okay. So you should reconnect with Bix. Okay. So the first question is, does Vel know?
Of course she knows.
So she knows. All right. So
I think so.
Freaking horrible. Why would she ever keep that from him? Like that.
I have so many problems with the proposed supposition or the everything about this question that is out there in the air. I have so many. I want to talk about it at the end, but this makes this like, I'm like, Bix doesn't trust Cassian to start because she leaves knowing what she knows. She's pregnant and she leaves. Val helps her because she's good, because they say she's good. Val says she's good.
She knows her. She's like, that's what I hear.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Like, she knows she's in a good place. So like it means that Bix doesn't trust Cassian. Cassian is hurt and so doesn't want to reach out to Bix, I guess. But like, it also means that as a group of women, they don't trust Cassian to be a loving father and still be willing to make a sacrifice. But the writers don't trust him to do that either. But
also, like, what is this whole, I'll think about it? And she goes, well, don't wait too long. Like, what? I want to understand something. Bix chose to leave.
Yeah.
Why is it Cassian's responsibility to reach out?
I know.
Is it the appropriate thing is she has set a boundary of I'm leaving, and he is respecting that boundary.
Yeah, maybe if they'd said it like, she'll connect with me when she's ready or something.
Yeah, that would have made sense, because then I would have been like, he's like, no, he's giving her space, which is what she asked for.
But they also like were never in a fight or anything. She just wants him to go and be kick-ass for the rebellion, which is all I also have a problem with, because that is not actually how relationships work.
No, it doesn't make sense.
You want to be with the person that you've chosen to be with as long as you can be with them through thick or thin, right? You choose to be firefighters, go and say, I could die today. And they go off and they go and do the thing that they have to do. That is what is called bravery. And even soldiers go off and do that sort of thing that they have to do today. And having a family doesn't get in the way of doing these things. I just don't understand where these writers are coming from.
I don't get it
They put this in front of us and then they made us go, I don't understand any of this.
No, none of it makes sense. But I'm also just I don't like the way that we lay this at Cassian's feet and we say
it's
like
your problem.
Don't wait too long. I'm like, okay, but then now you have taken the fact that he will never meet his son and you've made that his fault.
Yeah, it's
and it can't be his fault because he doesn't know and he didn't get a choice.
He never got a choice. And so we can only say like the writers didn't trust Cassian as a character. The writers couldn't write that Cassian could do his duty and what he had to do, and he had to overcome that. But it was too inconvenient to have Bix there because they had Jin, and that would be like, I don't understand why they wrote this.
No, I don't. And everyone's like, well, how did you expect them to wrap it up? And blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't actually. They wrote themselves into a corner. They should have never put themselves in that situation in the first place because they gave themselves no good resolution.
And they didn't want to kill her, and I appreciate that. But still, like, I have so many problems with how this ended. I have so many problems with this turn of events.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't understand.
They made all these characters worse. That's what this boils down to. And this scene specifically it boils down to, you just made all these characters worse. And that sucks. That sucks a lot because you know what it doesn't do? It doesn't improve my viewing experience of Rogue One. It makes me go, hey, to enjoy Rogue One, I have to ignore big parts of season 2 of Andor.
Yep.
Like that's what this is. And so that really sucks. And so anyway, moving on, and I know you're going to ask me, what do you think of this scene, Missy? Because
so Clea is coming out in the rain, and she's all covered in rain, which is a motif that means she's maybe experiencing a rebirth. We can. Water is important in rebirths. Yeah. Maybe
we'll go with it.
Maybe it's loose, but a lot of things are loose in this season.
Yeah.
And Val sees her, and she's coming to approach, and he's like, "Who's that?" It's Val, and Clea's like, it's kind of like shocker. Like, I don't know what she's trying to do. And it comes down to like, she's like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And
no, but the coat.
Oh yeah, no. But she pulls off her coat.
Okay.
And says, and puts it on her. And she's like, I have friends everywhere. You are here with friends.
But like, but the coat scene happens before the conversation about friends.
Yeah,
okay. I just want to focus on the coat.
Coats.
So she puts the coat on her, and to be clear, we've established, because there was that very, very first in the very first episode when Clea and Val met up,
they flirted.
They flirted because Val thought she'd been dumped by Cinta, and she was upset about it, and Clea makes the comment, we're just two single women surveying the prospects. And Val gave her that little once over, like not interested, and walked off.
Subtle lesbianism.
It was very subtle lesbianism. So, now we get to this scene, and she puts the coat over her, which of course, clothing someone that is claiming them for your world. It's frequently claiming a bride.
So she's bringing her into the rebellion, as well as bringing her into her home, which she literally brings her back to her house.
Right. And eventually, Clea sleeps in Val's bed.
Yes.
And keep in mind, the way that Val and Cinta's relationship was originally described was they share a blanket.
Yeah.
And so
they're together now.
This is suggesting that they are a couple now. Now, I want to clarify something very quickly. There are going to be people that hate this. There are going to be people that are like, I don't want them to get together and blah, blah, blah. Or no, like you're misinterpreting that. It's platonic. Listen, I don't actually care. I don't have a dog in this fight.
Yeah.
I could be here for it or not. I'm telling you right now, though, the motifs they are a couple now.
Yeah. This is what the symbols are telling us. What are the mythic motifs telling us, and what is the characterization telling us?
Right. But so anyway, to your point, though, they sit down around the table for drinks for the third time in a row for Vel specifically. Vel has got to pee so bad right now, you guys.
And all that rain is like making it worse.
Yeah, the rain, trickle.
That's why she leaves. She has to go pee.
Yeah.
Oh God, we've entered giggle phase. No.
Guys, best the Star Wars has ever been, okay?
She's going to the Treasure.
Sorry. Oh my God. Okay.
All right, but Draven has his third and final message.
Yes.
You got to go and talk to this guy.
He's still calling you. And what's so funny about it is that we know that like 30 seconds after Cass meets him, he's going to kill us.
Yeah, it's like, what?
Oh my God.
And we have this like very brief scene where Mon and Draven confront Bael about this. God. And I'm like, I hate this.
No, hate this scene. It's like two naughty kids coming to daddy. Oh, sorry, Dad, we broke the vase. Can we please have,
can we please send Cassian on a mission?
It's like, what is this? That's like, none of that makes sense for any of those characters. It is the weirdest scene. It does not make sense for Mon to show up like hat in hand to ask Bael permission to do anything.
Yeah. But yeah, Cassian is asleep and he is remembering his sister. And K2 wakes him up. Waking up humans is always so confusing. That was so funny.
I love
that. The man you do not like is here.
Yeah, which like again weird because like Bael's always been the most likable person. Nobody should dislike Bael.
Everybody loves Bael. He saves Jedi who are like being outcast. He tries to save little fighty Jedi from the Jedi temple. Like he is a good guy, and he's so charming in Rebels.
Yes.
Like
he's such a sweetie. Well, I love it. So the characterization is weird. And to extend that point, what does he say? He goes, "Excuse us, droid."
Yeah.
Bael Organa would never refer to a droid as droid. He calls them by their names.
He says R2D2 and C3PO. All the time. Who wrote this?
Right, who wrote this? Somebody who doesn't like Bael. Jeez.
They really don't like him. They did him dirty.
They did do him dirty. And so he shows up and he's there.
And he's like,
to give permission. Why is it his decision?
It's always been Draven.
It's like it doesn't make sense.
And so weird. It's so weird.
Cass asks him why, and he says, "If I die fighting the Empire, I want to go down swinging." And this is also just such a weirdly macho thing for soft girl dad Bael to say.
Yeah.
Bael has always known that he risked death, but he's never going to be like, "I want to go down swinging." Blah, blah, blah.
I just look good because of my cape.
What is this? What is this?
Yeah, you and Luthen. Thanks, Cassian. Can't get Luthen's name out of your mouth until this show ends. You and Luthen would have gotten along better than you would have thought. Okay,
whatever. Like, sure.
May the Force be with you, Captain. Okay, fine.
Never has a "May the Force be with you" landed with less impact than this one. I was like, I don't even care anymore. Like, please move the heck on. I also want to mention one other thing here related to Bael, which is, and Rogue One. There's never a mention of Jyn in this. And I personally think there should have been, because they have Galen's name, and we don't ever actually see in Rogue One them discovering Jyn's existence.
Yeah,
they jump immediately to them rescuing
could have been like, hey, we've been doing some research and Galen is under wraps, but we've tracked down Jyn Erso.
What if they were like, he has a daughter? And I want to point out all the ways that this could have worked. We just made a big deal out of how Clea is Luthen's daughter. We know Bael has a daughter. Mon has a daughter whom she had to leave behind. So you have all of these characters who have these daughter relationships, and now they've discovered that their target has a daughter. And so if all of them were suddenly like, we gotta find her, then it carries into Rogue One. It honors Jyn's role ultimately
because he's never given orders to go and find her, right? He just brings her back. So they needed this, like, it's like, like if they had just put that out there in the ether, I think it would have been better connective tissue. I totally agree. Yeah.
And you need so minor, just like one little line of like, oh, well, we discovered he has a daughter, she's being held, blah, 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 wherever in this whatever camp or prison they had taken her to at that point. I forget. But anyway, that would have been such a tiny thing. And again, like would have made it personal for all these characters who have daughters or are daughters. And they just didn't do anything with that. And it was just another weird choice of like, oh, we forgot that there are women in this story.
Yeah. Women exist? Question mark.
Women exist. What?
Yeah. So Cassian like starts to get himself prepped to go, and he waters his plants. Like Marva watered her plants before in the home. So it's like carrying on the Andor name, and also the lessons that Marva taught him, and also it's like care for others. And I like this moment.
Me too.
It was a good moment, and then he starts to sort of, in a way, walk towards Rogue One. That's all I can describe it. We get these flashes of Will and Drina doing their thing, Vel and Mon having breakfast. Perrin.
Here we go. No, all right. We're gonna pause and talk about Perrin.
Let's just talk through all the people, but Perrin and his daughter's mother-in-law. And Clea waking up in Vel's bed. Dedra in a Narkina prison, and seeing that. Clea flashes back to Clea, and Clea has a micro acting amazing moment where she sees beautiful. The camp that she helped build and all of the things that she has contributed to this, and that it's actually flourishing and working the way that Luthen sort of maybe helped her see it could work, and it actually gives her hope. And she has the tiniest micro little corner smile. Of a smile, and she knocked it out of the park because she is dead inside, and I appreciate her because I am also dead inside. And then we flash back to Deidre again, and she's crying, and like, what the hell did they do to this woman? I don't know. All right, let's talk about Perrin.
Oh my God.
I am so unbelievably mad.
I am pissed beyond reason. And given how often we are told that they just didn't have time, Marie Claire, to show us this and to show us that, and we just didn't have time for all these things this season. I don't understand why they spent a bunch of time on Perrin.
You know what takes no freaking time whatsoever?
Yeah.
Doing a holo. Let me explain. Yeah. Tony, in an article that came out today from Screen Rant, said, hey, we had this great scene planned for Perrin. He was going to talk to Mon and say, I knew what you were up to this whole time. They talked to me every week. They interrogated me. I never said a word. You didn't trust me. You could have trusted me. That could have been a breakup holo. Literally a flash to him.
Yep.
And she's looking at that before Val walks in. They could have solved this in, how long did that take me to read? Less than 15 seconds. And then we see the Perrin thing, and we feel bad about the destruction of their family. They forgot they have tools of technology that they can use to solve plot problems and character problems.
But also just like, again, like, why spend so much time with him, and why show how he is actually not a terrible person, and how they are growing closer, and like why do that? Why set all that up if you're not going to pay it off? Like, don't show all that stuff if you're not going to find the time to actually tie off that thread. But here's the other reason why this pisses me off to no end. All right. Swan maiden stories. Okay.
Yeah.
Very common for swan maidens to, they're with their mortal husband. They bear his children. And at some point they flee to the other world.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they actually leave the children behind as well.
Yeah.
And so this is framed as this horrible woman not doing her duty. She's not caring for her husband and her child. And she is breaking the social contract, and she is an outcast, and she's terrible. And this is why she is the beastly bride. This is why she is the animal bride, is because she is not human, because what human mother could leave behind her children, could abandon her family this way? And so when they do this, they are just framed as these witches often, actually.
And it's why they gave her the haircut then.
Right. And so in order to excuse Mon's horrible breaking of the taboo of abandoning her family,
we have to show that Perrin was
we have
bad
to
too.
make Perrin horrible.
Yeah.
And so they had to character assassinate Perrin to excuse Mon based upon a patriarchal, misogynistic taboo.
Yeah, it sucks.
That is what this is.
I was going to say this is the worst breakup cut that...
well, her haircut's hideous, but we knew she was going there.
We know that was the direction.
So. I take it more as like
there's no hairdressers on Yavin.
We've got force healers, but we don't have hairdressers.
No, the force healer has the same haircut. She gave her the haircut.
It's true. There you go. Okay, but like, yes. No, I'm so disappointed.
I'm so disappointed. I feel like what Perrin said would have been anti-patriarchal. It would have been in support of what she had done. That he had been silently supporting her this whole time, and then there could have been some sort of response like, of disavow me, do what you need to do to survive.
Yes, exactly. And then it would have made so much sense out of him apparently having an affair with, with his daughter's mother-in-law, because it would have been like, oh, he's playing the part to protect himself and to protect Mon. And I think that could have been amazing if there had been a scene, not even just with Perrin, but Lita too. Like if it could have been, she's we said last time, she should have showed concern for them when she fled the Senate, because like naturally her doing that would have brought them under suspicion and would have been very dangerous for them.
No, but you're right. They absolutely wrote her as a beastly wife situation. And they because we never see Lita, the last time we see Lita is actually, or the last moment they have interacted was that moment when she's like, you're standing behind me. And so it's like to say, when we look back at that moment now, you're getting in my way. And it's horrible.
Yeah, so they made Mon awful. They made Perrin awful. They made Lita awful. They made everybody awful. So part of my frustration with the show, but especially this episode, is the way that it just like character assassinates everyone. It makes everybody worse. Bale is worse. Mon is worse. Perrin is worse. Cassian is worse. Vel is worse. Bix is worse. Everybody's is worse. Now they're all worse people.
Yeah.
As a result of what happens in this episode.
We didn't need that.
Why? So anyway, Dedra, the whole thing, super upset about that. Cassian sees the Force healer, and because he's going off to his heroic destiny to become a martyr.
Martyr.
All right.
Gross. All right.
Saw's looking at Jeddah City. He's also going to be martyred shortly.
Yeah, and we see Krennic looking at the Death Star, also going to die for what he believes in. Mm-hmm. And then we see B playing with another droid. We're on Mina Rao. And then we see the field, and we see Bix, and she turns around, and she's holding a baby. And I said, oh, fuck off.
Yeah, too.
I had such a visceral reaction. It shocked Kyle.
Yeah.
He was like, what?
Instantly furious.
I was instantly, like, my gut reaction was like, what the hell did you guys just do?
Yeah, what did you do? Like, for real.
So I can understand why this would be satisfying, or at least understandable to so many people. And I do not want to... I don't want to say that how you feel about this situation of Bix choosing to leave with the kids and protect them was not valuable, and you might have found a lot of meaning in it. But for me personally, I have 2 children, and I found that this was a gross choice.
Yep.
Specifically because it devalues Bix, who had already been the pillar, the garbage can of this whole show, of all of the trauma that any woman could possibly have, except for maybe Dedra.
Really.
Was given to her, and yet she also doesn't have a choice in kind of what she gets to be when she grows up. She can only be a mother, and she can only protect what is the next generation, or what Cassian leaves behind.
His bloodline.
It is so patriarchal. It is so gross. And like,
yes.
and I don't mean to say it's gross because it's not. Babies are not gross. I have
No,
two
that's not the, but
kids.
it's not about
It's just
the
like
babies.
how it plays out. It plays out that she never trusted him ever.
Mhm.
It plays out that everybody's lying to him. He's not old enough or responsible enough to make his own decisions, and thus he is what the patriarchy says men should be, which is disconnected from their families, disconnected from their loved ones, and not care about them. That's how it plays out on screen, and it's so stupid.
I
feel the same. Sorry.
I'm trying to figure out the right words to express it. I felt not just anger, I felt, honest to goodness, and this is going to sound excessive, I felt a sense of despair because I was like, my thought was like, why are we not past this? It is 2025.
Yeah.
Why are we still here? What is this? Like, I just,
if they had ever said, hey, we want to start a family at some point earlier on in the season, and she had said, yeah, I really want to give a child a life that I never was able to do, it all could have been fine.
Right. Well, but also like the fact that they never gave Bix anything else in her life. That's the other problem.
She was a mechanic and not doing mechanic work on...
They never did that.
On the rebel base where there's obviously stuff to fix?
Right. Why is she back at the house making tea instead of over in the hangar working on ships? I don't understand. Like, that doesn't make it... Like, that's so freaking weird. So anyway, so she never did the thing that we know she's very capable
She owned her own business on Ferrix. She had a boyfriend. She had her own life until...
Right. And suddenly she has no life. She has only Cassian. And
now
only exists
Cassian's
for his
bloodline.
Comfort. And now she has his baby, and that's her life now. And like, it's just, this is so frustrating to me because, like, again, yes, I get the whole, like, my children are my life and my children are, yes, I have 2 children as well. I love them more than anything, but I also have a career, which I love. And and I have hobbies, which I love.
I host a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. It's and so this is what I want to say.
Yes.
Women are more than your daughters. Women are more than your girlfriends. Women are more than the mothers of your children. Women are more than the mothers who care for you and everything. Women are more than just their relationship to you.
Yep.
And that is not the message of this show.
Nope.
None of the women in the show exist except in relation to the men. And what the men are doing is what's important.
It's so frustrating. And I want to say, like, there was a visceral reaction online. Mm-hmm. There was comments on my posts. There was comments on women came out of the woodwork. Men came out of the woodwork and were like, what did they do? And a lot of people couldn't put it into words. They just felt crazy. Like literally they felt like can you confirm what I'm seeing here is true? And Star Wars said I'm nothing more than a woman to raise children.
Yeah. That my role is to raise his kids. But I don't get to be in the rebellion. Yeah. That I'm not a rebel and I'm not like and that's so weird in the series that started with Leia, who was a rebel before any of the rest of them were. Like, I just don't... Like, A New Hope opens with Leia getting captured, taking this critical information to the rebellion.
Yep.
Like, and that's who she is all the way through. Yep. But even when she is Han girlfriend... She's still that.
And she's a rebel first. And Padme is a senator, and she cares about her people, and she cares about the people of the galaxy, even when she's pregnant. Even when she's pregnant.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It just is so weird. It's like I kept on saying this, and I'm like, no woman has read these scripts.
No.
Like nobody, no woman with any power had commentary on these scripts.
Yeah. Yeah. It's whack. I just am...
So many people have been reaching out. Like I got emails, I got comments. Like I'm in shock that like Star Wars wrote this.
I am too. Well, and the reason I say that I feel despair about this is because this is being hailed, this is being praised as the pinnacle of Star Wars writing. And I'm going like, if this is what such a huge portion of the audience think is just the best that Star Wars can be, and
they missed
knowing
the point.
Right. Well, but not only that, but like just knowing what we know about how Star Wars is reflective. It is our modern mythology and it is reflective of our collective psyche.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little concerned because this means we are not moving away from those misogynistic and patriarchal perspectives. We are digging in farther. And this worries me for myself and every woman in my life.
Exactly. And I think that it is actually a reflection of sort of the degradation of, especially in the United States, women's rights.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, and as of this week, apparently they're now coming for birth control. Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Like, that's why it has such a visceral response.
And why we are so concerned about a show that is very strategically anti-fascist, but still full-blown misogyny, patriarchal ideals, some spattering of racism.
Oh, definitely racism, for sure.
Spattering of racism is because fascism is built upon the dominator culture. The dominator culture, Bell Hooks talks about, is the idea that there are 4 pillars to basically dominating others. And they are capitalism, white supremacy, imperialism, and patriarchy. And when you start attacking one of them, hey, imperialism in the sake of Star Wars, right? The others rear their other ugly heads to prop it up.
Yep.
And culturally, if we're going to go hard against fascism, the other ones are going to pump right up. And so immediately after this show was done, there was posts about how Bix and Cassian's child was Poe Dameron.
Oh.
And I'm just like, that's straight up racism.
That is racism.
And then there was an AI image, which was even grosser. And it's like, I can't with this. This is what you created because you didn't understand deep enough the tools that you were playing with.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So, and this is the problem, is that like, as much as I have enjoyed the show, and there are so many things that were so well done, and there was so much to love.
I wish we had the production values and the writing everywhere.
I know. This. Not this scene, but like the whole, what this represents.
Yeah.
Has really soured the whole experience for me. I don't really want to go back and watch again, like maybe season 1, but I don't want to go back and watch season 2.
Nope.
Because listen, it's not even just the way it all ends. It's also just, again, the journey to get there. Remember how many times early on we were like, ooh, I don't really love this, but maybe they'll fix it. They did not fix it. They did not make it okay.
They actually made it worse somehow.
They made it worse.
Yeah. They doubled down on some of the things that we were calling out in the first episode of this season. It's hard. It's not my favorite thing to be super critical of Star Wars. I'm not one of those overly positive podcasts that's like everything that Star Wars does is amazing. But I do try to, sometimes Star Wars isn't successful in, there's some weirdness. Sometimes the lines are weird. We've all listened to George Lucas's scripts. But the ideas, the thematic elements, the motifs are always so solid and on point. And George Lucas, let's say, was a girl dad, just like Bale, just like the Bale of our dreams. He cared about girls so much. In fact, he wrote an entire, character because he wanted his girls to have a character to look up to. Padme.
Yeah.
And, he always was a really big advocate of kick-ass women. Sometimes he made some questionable decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like in the spirit of Star Wars, did you not think that we wouldn't notice?
Yeah. I'm so disappointed, and truly, like, I would have guessed from the way everything was written that there were no women or people of color involved. But at the same time, I'm shocked by it, because as much as, I feel like Lucasfilm has really tried in recent years to bring in a lot of different voices and everything. But now I look at this and I go, okay, so just to be clear, all the shows that featured creatives who were not white men have pretty much all been canceled and or just panned in general. And looks like now this one is, getting all the praise. And like, there's been some critique of, Mandoverse, like Filoni and Favreau, but even they have gotten way, 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 way more leeway than creatives of other shows that were arguably of similar or better quality. So I have to say that between the fandom, which we know is racist and misogynistic because they got to be proving it all the time, between the fandom and Lucasfilm itself, I am not thrilled.
No.
Not pleased at all. We are headed in the wrong direction creatively. And
like, to lose out on shows like
disappointed.
Acolyte and Willow and like Kenobi, maybe not everybody's favorite, but Deborah Chow was amazing. And we had that very powerful character in there, the Inquisitor.
I love her. Reva's still one of my favorites. I adore her.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I'm a little hurt.
Like, I'm hurt. I'm hurt because
like I really thought about this a lot since we watched the episodes, but I'm hurt in a way that does not even compare to how I was hurt about the obvious like problems with Tross, because some of the construction problems don't exist, but I'm hurt in a very similar way.
Yeah. No, it's very similar.
As a woman.
Yep. No, I agree. It's
that
very
sucks.
similar.
I'm like, I was not expecting that from you, Tony Gilroy. What the hell?
Yeah. I'm just flabbergasted. I really am. I don't know, man.
I'm tired.
It's sad.
It drained the life out of me.
I know. I've been like really depressed for a couple days. You probably saw me. I immediately was like, I need to watch some Asian dramas because that's the only thing that will get me out of this funk.
Can I tell you, I've been watching Rebels with my eldest, and it is the best after Andor because it shows you a really cool family working together. This community, they build community over time, they protect community, and there's joy and there's love the whole way through. And it's not just martyrdom and nihilism.
Well, and I want to point out that even though there's a similar situation with Kanan and Ezra,
Kanan and Hera. Yes, there is, but there's more catharsis.
There's more catharsis, but also Hera was never reduced to just Kanan's girlfriend. She was never reduced to just Jason's mother. She always had this big role in the rebellion. Arguably, her role in the rebellion was way bigger than Kanan's.
And she ends up being a general and
General Syndulla.
And Jason is there.
Yeah, and he's
in
with
Ahsoka
her while she's fighting. My whole thing here is like, yes, there are some superficial similarities, and no, I don't love the general, like, we always got to kill one off, and apparently we can't ever have intact families in Star Wars or whatever. I get it, but that said, even that was handled better than this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in hindsight, it's like they gave so much catharsis to Hera and to us as an audience, and they understood like a lot of things about that relationship. My biggest problem is that they never kiss in the friggin' show before having a child. Hera and Kanan?
Yeah, they kiss right before he dies.
Oh, sorry.
They have one kiss.
Sorry, we're in the first season, and Robin's like, "Are they married?" why don't they kiss?
They act married for the entire thing. She even calls him dear.
Dear and love. She says love.
Dear, she calls him love. They do frequently refer to the other crew members as the kids, which I find hilarious. Yeah. Like it's honestly, like I rewatched Rebels as well, like recently, it was a few months ago, but it's so good. It's so good.
I highly recommend it. Like if you haven't ever watched Rebels, yes, it was meant for kids, but also it's beautiful and complex and is just a joy to watch.
Yeah, it is some of the best Star Wars. The stories are wonderful. The characters are wonderful. The weird Forcey stuff is fantastic. If that's your thing, there's plenty of it.
You know it is.
But there's also moments that if you're not into the weird Forcey stuff, there's also good stuff. Like, for example, one of my favorite episodes is the one where they recruit Wedge. Right? Like, that's such a good episode, and it's got nothing to do with the Force, but it's just it's great. It's cool. You get to see them recruit Wedge. It's fun.
I also think that it's a good reminder that the rebellion was not just Yavin 4.
Right.
You know, and it is a good, it gives you more context to how big, how varied. Bail is awesome in it.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And you get to really understand the role that every person plays. So when we talk about the collective myth, Rebels does such a good job of showing how all of these different people come together and how, you know, like there are a lot of individual rebel cells, and then over time they ally together. And sometimes that's really difficult because you have like historic enemies who have to find a way to work together.
And you actually have a full redemption arc from an Imperial on screen, and it's really cool.
Guys, I love Callus, and I guess in retrospect, I'm glad there was no crossover and he wasn't in this show, because they probably would have ruined him.
It's so disappointing. It's hard
Callus.
because like the actors in this acted their little butts off.
I don't blame the actors at all. They're incredible in this. They're amazing. The
writers, like, they have really good words that come out of people's mouths, and I want all of those writers to be slapped once and then told they are very bad boys. Yes. And then they have to go to my school of what Star Wars is.
Yep.
They have to read
Bell Hooks.
They have to read The Heroine's Journey, and then they have to read Women Who Run with the Wolves plus Joseph Campbell. And then they can go and write for Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. And then we'll have amazing stuff.
Yeah.
But first, the slaps.
First the slaps. Yes,
Maybe Bill Willimon, he can be saved the slaps. He wrote the first arc.
Yeah. Yeah.
He wrote The Wedding. He wrote Narkina 5. I don't know. Maybe.
But he wrote What Happened to Bix.
Yeah, no, I know. He has to prove to me with a paper that he is worthy of not getting slapped.
Please,
I'm not a violent person.
Words.
This is ridiculous.
I don't know. I like it's this is where we come back to what we always say after a disappointment like this, which is that like there are media out there that are doing this well. I apologize that I forget who said it today on Blue Sky, but I saw someone commenting. Apparently, it's the anniversary of the She-Ra finale.
Oh my god!
Yes, and so somebody was talking about She-Ra, and I was like, that show is amazing. And so like that show gets it. That show is great. It's just, and again, back to like, I know it's for kids, guys, but I'm telling you, it's better than a lot of these adult shows. And like, yes, I know okay. Sorry, I'm going in circles here, but this is important too. Why do we keep recommending kids shows? Why do we keep recommending Asian media? I'll tell you why. We don't get these fun prestige dramas that hit all the notes, because what defines prestige television? Right, Claire? Men write it and men direct it. That is what makes it prestige television. I would like you to consider all of the shows that are considered like, you know, like the examples of prestige TV, and go look at their showrunners.
70% of Korean dramas are written by women.
There you go. See? But see, those get, you know, in the Western world, those get sort of like poo-pooed as like cheesy girl stuff.
And yet they sell lots of money.
They sell lots. But so the point being that, like, if you're trying to hold out for the anti-patriarchal prestige Western drama, you are going to be waiting a while. Mm-hmm. That is what this show communicates, among other things. It's not happening anytime soon. So please go spend your money and your time and your attention in the places where those stories are being told, because they are out there and they're fantastic. So
I hate that we have to end this show on a sigh. I did watch Rogue One yesterday.
Oh, there you go.
I really enjoyed it. So I am looking forward to covering that with you, Missy, at some future point. Very soon. Yeah. Because I think that there's a lot of value in the story in a lens of what happens after Andor. I didn't react to it the way that some people seem to be reacting to it. So that'll be interesting to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And, you know, I would love to cover Rogue One. And also, you know, I just want to mention, of course, we did a few episodes on masculinity in Star Wars already.
We're going to finish that. We have to finish that.
Yeah, we're going to finish that series.
Oh, we're going to finish that now.
Yeah, like now we have all kinds of new things to talk about.
Yeah.
We were hoping to have more examples of what Star Wars does right, and instead we got a few more episodes of what Star Wars is still working on.
So, like, specifically throughout this season, there was so much consumption. I highly recommend people check out our House of Atreus episode to understand that. And if you have seen Willow, or you can find it somewhere online, I highly recommend you watch Willow, because the use of consumption in that show from a mythic motif perspective is done probably the best I have ever seen.
Yeah. It's done so deliberately. It's done by someone who knew exactly what they were doing and exactly how to pull on those threads. Yep.
And the mythic transformations that happen within this story are beautiful and thoughtful and all of that. So back to our study of masculinity, we talked about the American monomyth. I have a great episode, introduction kind of to bell hooks and the will to change.
Yep.
And then... did we have one more in our series?
Yeah, we had Anakin and the Orphean Myth.
Yes, Anakin and the Orphean Myth, which does talk a little bit about Padme being a swan maiden in that tiny bit. We have to come back to that one because that'll be great.
Yeah, I think that just a general swan maidens in Star Wars episode might be good.
There's a lot
in the
of
meantime. Yeah, in the meantime, I do have a whole essay on Tumblr about swan maidens in Star Wars. So if you want to get a jump on that topic, feel free to check it out.
Highly recommend your Tumblr, because you do metas all the time, and people who are looking for additional reading beyond just my Patreon, I always post your stuff. So
thank you.
But there was still things to be learned about fascism, and for that, I am thankful for the show. It did give people the language to talk about what they're experiencing currently in society, and I am thankful for that. I just wish they had realized how deep the domination goes.
Yep. So what I would say is take the lessons that this show has provided about anti-fascism and please seek out sources for also anti-racism and anti-patriarchy. You need those.
And anti-capitalism. It's actually important to do that as well, because they all help each other.
Yep. Yes. So liberation.
Liberation for all.
Yeah. That's what you want.
Because guess what? We have friends everywhere.
There you go.
All right, Missy. I love you.
Oh, I love you too. I appreciate that you're willing to go to these dark places with me. Where we have to. It
is exhausting. This has been like a month of very tired. Yeah, lots of talking, lots of analysis. I'm going to take a couple of weeks off here because I need to like refresh my batteries. But I love this audience because they also listen to this and think. And then we get these amazing tweets or posts to us. We get these amazing comments. There were so many great comments on last week's episode. People
the YouTube comments were incredible we got a bunch of new people, who were like, I've never heard this before. Who are you? And that was so exciting. I thought that was so cool.
Like it definitely feels like people are really engaging. And again, and I really appreciate that. I just, unfortunately, sometimes the material itself, there are big things that we have to call out along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Missy, where can people find your amazing Tumblr posts?
You're very sweet. I am All Girls Are Princesses on Tumblr.
And we will have more for you soon. Other topics to continue talking about. Star Wars is an endless font. Take care, everyone. Cheers. Thank you for listening to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host. Our orchestral music is by Christy Carew for What the Force. You can support the show directly on Patreon at patreon.com/whattheforce. We would like to thank all our patrons, especially those who love and are obsessed with What the Force. Christian R., Adrian, Sarah Joy, Scott, John, In Wild Space, Minky Moo, Derek C., How Rude, Christian Luca, Carly Ann, and Scott C. Support the show by wearing the Force with our merch. Like and subscribe on YouTube, or leave a 5-star review on iTunes or other pod apps. It helps people find the show. You can connect with us on Blue Sky at WT Force, What the Force Podcast on Facebook, or on our website at whattheforce.ca, or our Discord. Links are in the liner notes. Feel free to reach out and start a conversation. Cheers.